All right, everybody, we are live and we are back live with another stream, another bunch of reviews. Probably we're going to do what we're going to do is we're going to review a bunch of shorts by Muhammad Ali and of Muhammad Ali of Muslim Lantern and Mansoor of, I think, Dawa Wise, right? So, welcome to Philo Sapiens, where religion meets reason. Hello, Madan, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Just looking forward to the stream. We've not rehearsed this, or we've not reviewed what we're going to be doing, so it's going to be entirely brand new. The video, hopefully, anyway. I mean, I'm pretty sure neither of us has watched it. In previous experiences anywhere. So it should be an interesting one.
Yeah, and one more thing is that I want to apologize that we had the stream scheduled for, I think, 45 minutes earlier, and then we postponed it for 30 minutes later, and then due to some technical issues, we were running late. So apologies, sincere apologies to everybody. Modern, I think I can hear some noise from your side.
That's all right. It's just me.
Okay,
It
okay.
should stop now. Can you hear me clearly again? Still.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
All right. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is Martin, what do you think? Shall we make the link public after maybe 30 minutes or so, or shall we
Yeah,
make it
yeah.
public right away and then we can keep reviewing, and if
Let's
anybody joins?
No, let's review first. Let's get our let's do the warm up exercises. Get that out of the way first, and then we can see afterwards who's
All right,
wanting to
let's do
come
that.
on. Yeah.
All right, so let me present the screen. And one more thing I wanted to say here, Martin, that our channel is for critiquing religions or any kind of ideology which is kind of not based in reason,
Hmm.
and we don't have any axe to grind with any particular community, whether that happens to be any particular group, basically religious group, right? So that's something that I want to just I haven't spoken about that in a long time, or at least I haven't told our audience that in a long time. So just wanted to make sure that anybody who comes with a hate filled with for any particular community should review their stance again and again until they understand that I think they are in the wrong, right? Our approach in this channel is very straightforward. We critique religions based on their kind of arguments they present, sometimes based on the scriptures they have, but we have nothing, no hate against anybody. So I just wanted to make that very, very clear for everybody. All right, Madan. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share the screen. This Muslim Lantern. Okay, let's listen to what he's
We
saying.
have no issues with science. But we say if we have a text that tells me something about the physical world, I know it's coming from the Creator. I know that it's 100% certain. I should not use a method which is not 100% certain, which is scientific method, to come to a conclusion that I already have certainty of. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, as a Muslim.
I'm saying, leave Muslim outside. I'm saying you as a person. If you know that God told you a certain thing about the physical world, you know for certainty that kind of statement is from God. Would you still require to go and research to make sure whether what God said is right or wrong? You already know it's from God. You have evidences from God.
Personally, yes.
Do you believe that God is perfect, doesn't make mistakes?
I presume he's not making mistakes.
So therefore, if I know something is from God, questioning it to me will be ridiculous. So if I know it's from God, but I say, no, I know it's from you, I know you're perfect, but I don't want to submit to your laws, that's an issue. Do you agree scientific method does not lead to absolute certainty?
No, it doesn't.
If God says something, is it absolutely certain or not?
My conception of God would not.
Imperfect God. We have no issues with science, but we say.
All right. So yeah. So first thing first, I think getting to 100% certainty about God, where are you getting those from? and these are exactly the same fundamental principles that you're gonna come to conclusion, unless until you can bring a very deductive argument using which you can prove the existence of God without any shadow of a doubt. But at least, Madan, I'm unaware of any such argument that you'll use completely, and especially from a Muslim perspective, from an Islamic perspective, when you're using Quran to say that, see, Quran is miraculous and this is why we believe in Allah and all those things. Their principle is based on the same inductive principles that the scientific method is based on, or even the testimony. Basically, I mean, I'm not quite sure if epistemologically testimony falls into a different category than some of these inductive uh, observational testimonies. Basically, I would say it falls in the same category, basically, because it could be false. Basically, you could have a chain of narration that could be false, pretty much, right? So I would say, I mean, it's not absolute truth. You can't be absolute certain about your God's existence, and so you fall into the same trap that you're critiquing, basically the scientific method. I don't think this is right. Right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, no, absolutely the case. The methods in which we come to know reality, whether that be deductive reasoning or inductive reasoning or abductive reasoning, they're all dependent upon human perception and argument. And as long as the human mind is fallible, and we can make mistakes, epistemic mistakes in relation to any of those things, whether it be a deductive argument, a pure analytical argument, or just an inductive argument, there is still you're not reached absolute certainty, because absolute certainty implies that you are a divine being yourself, which will be tantamount to shirk, yeah, and or blasphemy if you're like a Christian, yeah. So the idea that you've got absolute certainty is already very specious of a point, right? And of course, as you've also already mentioned, and we have mentioned, the very same way you arrive at the conclusion that the Quran or the Hadiths are written by a god, the fine tuning argument, or the Kalam cosmological argument. These are all contained premises that are based on the observational method, which reduces down to induction. They all involve inductive premises in some place or some form. Like everything that begins to exist has a cause, has an empirical reference point, or the universe began to exist has an empirical reference point, or the fact that minds are the only thing that we know that can cause things that are immaterial is a empirical or observational thing that we've kind of learned about the universe, right? So these are all also inductive, right? As you mentioned, hadiths and the Quran and the collection of these. How do we get to know these things? Well, because they're humans called, Muhammad, humans called hadith narrators and collectors existed. This is all based on what? Indirect observation or observations that have been passed down through chains of narration. The historical method, which is the hadith, try to adhere to, which is again a science, and science is based on induction. So ultimately, everything that the Muslim believes as well is based on some fallible reasoning, and therefore also induction, and therefore they don't have absolute certainty. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one more thing that this needs to be, mentioned and ironed out here is, I mean, they are taking a very narrow definition of a god. I mean, if let's say, I mean, this guy Muhammad Ali's hypothesis is based on quite a few kind of assumptions. He thinks God has to be perfect. I mean, by which definition? By what? I mean, what is your kind of, what logic are you using to come to that conclusion? I mean, why can't an imperfect being create a universe like our universe? I think it's there's no logical contradiction in there. Basically, I don't see any logical contradiction that a kind of imperfect, very powerful being could create a universe like us. It doesn't even have to be really powerful. There could be some like particles and antiparticles, basically, right? And just a zero energy or just a little bit of positive or negative energy could create a universe like our universe, basically. Just a slight imbalance. I think we have talked about this in earlier, right? Basically, what is butterfly effect, basically, right? It can cause El Ninos, La Ninas, basically, right? Just by the flip of a butterfly, right? So it doesn't take too much to cause some big changes, basically, right? And the same could be, it's a possibility. I'm not saying exactly that's how it's happening. I'm saying it's just, if you can think about that possibility, you can't just dismiss that possibility at all completely and say no, God has to be perfect because the universe is so big, it has to be all powerful and all those things. So I just don't see why they have to be all these clause that they add. I don't see any evidence from them they provide to substantiate those claims, basically.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a well-known issue within the philosophy community called the gap problem, GAP problem, right? That even after successfully establishing the truthfulness, let's say, of all these main key arguments for theism, let's say, or God, for example, like the fine-tuning argument or the Kalam cosmological argument, or maybe even stuff like the contingency argument or revelation, it doesn't establish the divine properties, the omni-triad properties, for example, omnipotence, omnibenevolence, omniscience, etc. Right? You can't establish those because those are infinite qualities. Infinite meaning they are maximized to the highest level. So either they're maximally the most benevolent, or they are infinitely benevolent, whatever you want to call it. But none of those arguments, for example, the fine-tuning argument, necessarily raises our confidence significantly beyond reasonable doubt that the entity, for example, that fine-tuned, let's say, the parameters, is necessarily all powerful, or necessarily all benevolent, or or the most benevolent, or the most merciful. Yeah, because why should it? The universe obviously has uh, uh, things within it that are very majestic, very brilliant, very difficult, very intricate to make. But it might be the case that the creator of the universe was just powerful enough to create the universe, to fine-tune the parameters, and that's it. Why should we assume more power? So at best you have finite power, but you don't get infinite power, or more than that. If you go by things like Occam's razor, you shouldn't multiply then the amount of explanations than necessary. So why should we multiply the number of explanations than necessary and add something like infinite attributes when a finite set of attributes can explain, stuff like that fine-tuning? And in fact, some people like Philip Goff, I think it's Goff, philosopher, may say fine-tuning is better argument for a finite designer than a infinitely powerful God. It's not actually very good for an infinite God to explain, right? There's multiple reasons,
Exactly, yeah.
right?
Philip Goff, right?
Yeah,
Philip Goff
yeah,
is
yeah. And he's like a theist in some sense. I think he believes in finite gods, right? So he's a very unconventional in today's kind of modern day kind of understanding of God. But there you go. He thinks. I think I'm not sure if he's personally a theist, but I think he might be, of a
I
very
think he's an atheist turned deist or theist, and I think so. I might be wrong though,
I
but
think he
he's
might
a
be a
new
deist.
he's
Yeah,
yeah
yeah,
he's a new kid on the block, basically.
yeah.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
I think this hypothesis that he has come out with, it's probably not too old, maybe a couple of years, maybe hardly 2 years old or something like that. That's what I remember because I just recently heard him.
Yes. Yeah. That's correct. So, if anybody asks themselves carefully, um, I think it's more fitting for at least if you compare the hypothesis, the hypothesis, of a absolutely powerful designer versus a finitely powerful designer, it fits that hypothesis much better because the universe, has David Hume expressed this a long time ago. The universe has finite qualities, not infinite qualities. Simple as that. There's nothing infinitely benevolent about it. There's nothing infinitely powerful about the universe, right? It's finitely powerful at the moment, anyway, right? So there's no reason
Right.
to assume a finite creation. At this moment, we're assuming creation needs an infinite cause or creator.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I
Simple as
agree,
that. Yeah.
Madan. I mean, there are so many different possibilities that I mean, it's really hard to engage and list all those possibilities. I mean, even universe could be infinite, and the creator could just be a finite being. I mean, there's no contradiction in there, basically. It's
Mm.
it just doesn't. It doesn't. And one more thing that I wanted to add is when they have come to know about. How do they know that this guy is not gonna lie about whatever it is written in their scripture? That is another problem they have to face, basically, right?
Hmm.
And they haven't given any supporting evidence for it. Basically, this is basically, I'm talking about the evil god hypothesis of what's his name? What's the philosopher who came up with this? Martin,
Stephen
remind
Law.
me.
Stephen Law.
Stephen Law,
Hmm.
right? So this is that problem is also there, right? Why do you have to say that this guy is not going to lie to you about the natural world? Probably it's just that the science is telling you the truth, and that evil god is telling you all the lies. And the problem therein is basically who gets to use their brains to come up with the right answers instead of being fed the wrong answers, basically. Yeah,
Mm.
that could be one of the ways for that guy to push you into heaven or hell. Who knows, right?
Yes. Yep. So we've got a comment here. Why would the creator only be arbitrarily powerful if he is created? Take Rasmussen's arbitrary limits argument, right? So I'm pretty sure what Yazan means is why would the creator only be arbitrarily powerful if he created? I think that's what he means, right? Oh,
No,
is
no,
he
we
created? Sorry,
didn't
I'm
we didn't we didn't
misreading it.
say
He's saying, sorry, I misread
if
that.
he is created. I think he's saying, why would the creator only be arbitrarily powerful if he
Is
is
he himself
created?
created? Yeah.
Right. We are not
Yeah.
saying he is created. Maybe it's
No, no, yeah, I know
he's
he's trying to imply that if he was created, then he may be arbitrarily powerful. If he's not created, and he has no creators, if he's like a first cause, and then combine that with the arbitrary limits argument, then you're going to have a infinitely powerful. Because if you remember what the arbitrary limit argument is that any arbitrary limit, right,
yeah.
is a contingent. Basically, he's trying to say it's a contingent thing, right? It could have been else, differently. If
It
I
could be
remember the
something
argument,
else. It could be,
yeah,
yeah, it could be
yeah,
something else.
if I
Why
remember
why
it
this?
correctly, yeah,
Yeah, why 3
yeah,
billion instead of 3 trillion or something like that, whatever, right?
yes, right,
Yeah.
and that could have different arguments for it. So if you accept the argument of arbitrary limits, I personally don't find it pretty that compelling. I have no issue with there's no issue with having a necessary cause. A
Having
necessary
arbitrary
cause
limits yeah,
that has
having a
that is arbitrarily limited, yeah. Because I don't I don't believe I'm not really a firm subscriber of the principle of sufficient reason. Yeah, I don't believe in, for example, specific and arbitrary things must have must be contingent or anything like that. I don't find that principle to be at all compelling. Reason being, how do we get to that? How do we get to establish that? And I don't think there's any successful argument to show that anything that is arbitrarily limited, is actually arbitrarily limited. It's not arbitrarily limited. Suggests as though it was randomly limited. And if something is just necessary, if it's just a necessary cause that it has this power, then it's just necessary. It's just either factually necessary, meaning that it's true only on this world, but not modal necessity. True, that is true on all possible worlds, or it's true on all possible worlds as well, or something like that. Right now, it won't be modally necessary, right? Because something being in one particular way can be different in a different world. But you can imagine that with something with infinite qualities as well, right? So I never really understood that sort of dialogue or conversation, in the sense that if something is arbitrarily limited, that it can't be necessary at the same time. You'll have to give more of an argument for it.
Right. I do agree. I do agree with that. Another point I had in mind, probably it just slipped out of my head right now, but I think what we're going to do is Yazan had one more question. I think he wants us to move to Madan. I think. What's your objection to a contingency argument and FTA argument? Shall we take this on, or maybe uh, wait for our review to get over and then tackle it?
I think we should finish our review. Yeah, let's just do what we started out, because I think we can. If Yazan wants to come on, then maybe we can have a talk later, right?
Yeah, that's what I told Yazan, that maybe he would like to join and ask the question. Maybe that's a better way instead of taking up from the live chat and then responding. Maybe a much better conversation would be, not that we are going to pin him down or something like that. It's going to be just a conversation, just exchanging ideas. So if Yazan wants to join in, maybe I'll make the link public, and once we review another short, and we can have a conversation about this, right? Maybe I'll just make the link public, right?
Yeah.
Madan,
I mean,
what do you say?
just to summarize, then what I mean is the gap problem in philosophy is that there are some arguments that attempt to establish the gap problem, like contingency argument, as Yazan's talking about, or the moral argument to establish God's moral properties, or the ontological argument, which tries to establish God's perfectness. Right? If they go through, maybe they would, for example, truly be the case that we know God being is this omnitriad being, right? Etc. Right? Yeah. So that is true for that. It's true in the sense that if they are true and sound, valid and sound, that it would be the case that we can establish deductively, let's say, a being which has infinite properties. But I don't think you can do that from the Kalam cosmological argument. And I don't think you can do that from revelation, arguments that are solely based on revelation. I don't think you can do that from the fine-tuning argument, etc. Arguments like the arbitrary limits argument does attempt to try and do that. For that, we'll have different objections that we just think that they fail for other reasons, right? Whereas for the objections against the gap problem for fine-tuning is more so that even if the fine-tuning gets established, we don't think we've got good enough reason to think we know the attributes of the being.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. True that. And I think that's same problem as with contingency as well. But anyways, let's not go there. Let's focus on the review right now.
Yep.
Okay. What I'm gonna do, Madan, is I'm gonna bring in another one for us to review. You like Mansoor, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, this is a small one, Madan. This is a small one. Let me add this. The title is really good. That's why I picked it up, basically. And not that there's something really... I mean, it's just a poor atheist, basically. I mean, there are all strands of atheists out there who can't really formulate a single argument decently enough, right?
Maybe we're just dreaming.
Would you just go and start walking and running while the car's coming?
I wouldn't.
Why not?
Because I believe that the car exists.
But they may not.
They may not.
So what's stopping you from just walking?
I believe that I am a biologically alive human being. And if I kill myself...
Why would you say you kill yourself? They may not be real. It could be an illusion.
Of course.
What's stopping you from...
I really appreciate dialogue, but I don't know, have you ever heard of nonviolent ways of communicating? I think this is really something that might help you.
You felt offended?
Speak to people who believe differently in a respectful way.
What have I done to show you disrespect?
I don't feel comfortable in this way of communicating.
I understand, but you're using the word disrespect.
I won't lecture you guys.
That's fine. So, take care.
Everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for the feedback, though.
All right, this review probably is not on against Mansoor per se, but against this woman, I would say, right? I don't know what they cut or how they edited it. Maybe they cut some part to make it look as ugly for this woman as it does. she was not able to frame her argument properly. Maybe what she maybe try to steal woman her argument, basically steal man her argument, basically, Martin. She wanted to say that this reality might just be a dream, basically, and in that dream, whatever she faces, if she is a character in that dream, within that dream, then it's perfectly fine for her to avoid getting, in the way and getting killed by a car, basically. And even if that whole thing might just be a dream, for that dream, that pseudo reality, she might not want to get killed, basically. So how hard it is for Mansoor to understand and just bring in some really, sloppy objection to it. Why won't you just go in front of the street? It might just be a dream and get killed, right? I mean, for all she knows, she's not claiming this is really a dream. Her claim is not that she's certain that this is just a dream and then I would just be happy. She's just kind of a skeptic saying that it might just be a dream. And even if it's a dream, which I'm not certain about, I wouldn't want to get killed even in this dream, pretty much, right? So I don't know. I just wanted to bash this atheist as well. I don't know whether she's an atheist or not, or whatever she has, whatever worldview she has. At least in the title, that's what it is written.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's a big difference between saying that this is a dream versus this might be a dream, right? Right. It might be the case that that the $1 million that you have in your bank is fake, right? So should you burn it?
Exactly.
No, I mean, if you know for sure the $1 million you have in your bank account is fake, then maybe, right? But it might be fake is not a good reason to think I should, go on
Jump
act
off
as an
a
atheist.
jump off Eiffel Tower or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
I don't
just
know
simple.
where Mansoor gets all these retorts. Basically, I'm not quite sure.
Right.
He seems to think that he has given he has crushed his opponent's arguments pretty much, right? While I agree that this woman hasn't given really good, maybe she hasn't posed her her argument really well, all that well. She could have done better, or maybe they have clipped the real good parts from here. I can't tell. But I'll say it's the former one. She hasn't been able to articulate her argument pretty well. That's what I would think.
Yes.
Anyway, so I have made the link public. This one, as I said, this clip didn't have much of a meat. I just wanted to bash an atheist as well, which I did. And so anyone who's listening and wants to join and have a conversation is welcome to do so. I think David K is saying, I'm interested in joining, but still at work. Best argument for Judaism is we don't want you to convert. And if you do, it'll take some time because you're not joining a system of belief. Yeah, I think, Madan, both of us are not that familiar with Judaism, right? At least theologically. I think maybe they have similar arguments. Theologically, we are not all that well versed with Judaism. Christianity to some extent, both of us, I think, but not Judaism. At least I'll speak for myself. Okay, then again, I'm mostly secular. Judaism does not claim to be the only one or the best. All right, yeah, I think that's fair enough. But I think maybe there are Orthodox Jews who are pretty staunch in their belief system, pretty much. And in my life, I have come across quite a few. Madan, I'm pretty sure you had friends in your life who were Jews, right? And the friends that I had, the Jewish friends that I had, or I have rather, they were pretty secular, but at least they were pretty, staunch about their belief system, just like the Muslims, pretty much, right? So at least that's what my take is. But David might have different things to add on to those, basically. Anyway, shall we run another?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right. What do I have? I don't have anything good. That's the thing, because we didn't get much time to find anything good. All right, let's see what this one. Let's see how this one is. All right, Martin, can you see it? All right, so let's see what this.
Why does it have to be one singular perfect creator?
Our originator is perfect by necessity.
Why?
If you are not perfect, that means you are imperfect. You're having some kind.
All right, this is the highlight of the century, basically, or highlight of this year. If you're not perfect, then you are imperfect. Wow, good, Mansur. Kudos.
Of deficiencies. How can you be deficient when you had no beginning of existence? If someone or something exists without it being caused into existence, there is nothing that you can be limited by or limited with. If you have knowledge, for example, you will possess this knowledge without any limitations, because no one is imposing some kind of restriction in your knowledge. You're not bound by any agency that gave you some knowledge. So if God exists always without a beginning, there's no one that's giving attributes and qualities and properties to God. None of them is given. It's already not acquired but inherently possessed.
Why does it have to be one singular perfect creator?
Our originator is perfect by necessity.
Why?
If you are not perfect, that means you are imperfect.
All right, Madan, do you have anything to? Oh, this is just. Shall we just reject it outright?
Play it again. Play it again. Let me just hear that again.
You're having some kind of deficiencies. How can you be deficient when you had no beginning of existence? If someone or something exists without it being caused into existence, there is nothing that you can be limited by or limited with. If you have knowledge, for example, you will possess this knowledge without any limitations, because no one is imposing some kind of restriction in your knowledge. You're not bound by any agency that gave you some knowledge. So if God exists always without a beginning, there's no one that's giving attributes and qualities and properties to God. None of them is given. It's already not acquired but inherently possessed.
Why does it have to be?
Right. So this is kind of very similar. It's not the same as the arbitrary limits argument, but it's kind of similar, very similar.
Yeah.
It's not the same at all. It's very different. But it's just the idea that if you have this kind of creator that doesn't have a creator and is unbounded by, let's say, the limitations of creation, then it'll be weird for it to not have unlimited attributes. And therefore it will be, or something like that. Is that correct? That's kind of how I understood it.
Right. That's how it seems like to me as well.
So
right.
it's unbounded, right? Because there's nothing else causing it, and therefore it will be unlimited. Well, again, this is not something that anybody really accepts in any other front. Let's say in cosmology, where if the universe is infinite, that every single property of it is infinite in every way, shape, or form, right? If the universe is infinitely the case, it doesn't necessarily mean, for example, every single thing within it or every single attribute is infinite, right? It maxed out to infinity. It just might be time or space that is infinite, right, or something like that. And but it doesn't necessarily mean that there'll be an infinite number of planets.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean there'll be an infinite number of planets. They could be. It's just the time and space. What we talk about the universe, we talk about the cosmos, and it could be that very many finite galaxies. If you imagine a multiverse, some universes may contain planets, other universes might be empty or something like that, right? So nothing corresponds to the idea that it will necessarily have to be the case that there'll be an infinite number of planets or something like that, etc.
Maybe if the universe is infinite, then you'll have to have, given that there is a possibility of a planet existing or not existing in a galaxy, right?
Yeah.
Then shouldn't that entail that the number of planets have to be infinite?
I don't
I
think
think
so.
so. I
No.
think it has to. It has to be. Because even if there is a non-zero probability of of a galaxy containing a planet, right? Even if it happens to be just a single planet, then I would say that it has to mathematically follow that the number of
Like how I see it is, imagine there's an infinite chain of infinite necklace that's infinitely long, right? And but it could very well be that the only two colors on it is black and white.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. That's true.
yeah.
But then
And maybe I'm not
the
mapping. Yeah, maybe I'm not mapping it
yeah
properly when I
the
explain the
mapping with
universe.
the planets is
Yeah,
a probably an
it's a bit.
incorrect one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you'll have to just describe it differently. I think if you describe it
yeah.
differently, then you can.
Yeah.
So maybe I just didn't explain myself properly. So it could very well be that the universe just contains um,
Only two colors, or maybe only limited number of colors. Maybe, yeah,
yeah, stuff
that's
like that.
possible.
So
Yeah,
you can. So the point is, maybe the planet example isn't the greatest. But the point is that not every single attribute has to be. You can have certain infinites, but not every single attribute on that infinite has to be maximized to infinity, like the colors, for example, right?
yeah. I mean, just like if your only range, if your whatever the spectrum, electromagnetic wave spectrum is limited, then you can't have infinite number of colors, probably, right? I mean, I would still debate that. Basically, I mean, because what do you consider as to be a color? Basically, if it's on a
Well,
real
just
timeline, it
yeah,
might
just
just
imagine
be
it.
infinite. Yeah.
Yeah, just imagine it in terms of the necklace that I'm talking about, right? Forget this color spectrum. Well, I'm just talking about a model of where there's just a chain of a necklace, right? And it only has two colors, black and white, and it's just an infinite set of beads of black and white,
Yeah,
black and white, black and
randomly
white.
distributed black
Yeah,
and white,
and this is
basically,
just
right?
one possible world, right? And that's it, right? And so you can have something that is an infinite in quality, the number of beads, infinite length, but not infinite colors. And so the point is, you can have things that are set to an infinite, but other qualities are not set to an infinite, right? And it's hard to articulate it because what are these other qualities? When you put it in context, it makes more sense. Maybe I didn't do greater service to explain how it might apply with planets, right? But I could imagine, for example, that the universe is infinitely large, but there's a finite number of planets, right? And you can imagine it in different sort of thing with different sort of concepts.
Right, right.
But the point that I'm trying to make with this is that we don't accept this in any other situation. So it could be that there is a initial set of conditions that have always been there. The universe has been eternal, right? But it doesn't mean there's consciousness. It doesn't mean there's any there's any because if we assumed infinity, everything should be maxed out to. Then we should assume many other things, but we shouldn't. It just doesn't follow, and cosmologists accept that all the time, where the initial set of conditions or the size of the universe or time could be infinite, but other things might be finite.
Yeah, this bodes too unwell for Mansoor to assume. I mean, to argue with this kind of argument, because, and one reason I'll tell you, Mahadan, is, I mean, not tell you, but you'll probably point out flaws in it, and for the audience, is that when he says that everything has to be maxed out, in that case, when we consider the prior purity of this being, basically, he's perfect and he's perfectly good, then saying that he can even imagine of bad creating evil, shouldn't that be a problem for theists? Basically, he shouldn't even be you know able to think, create evil, basically, at all, in my opinion, at least. That's how I think, because the prior purity has to be maxed out to infinity as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you even get like a benevolent being from that.
Yeah,
Why would
I'm
it?
saying, I mean,
Yeah,
let's say this
if you max,
attribute is given,
yeah,
right? Let's
yeah.
assume, for the sake of argument, this When this I think is a problem for Mansoor,
Yeah.
huge problem.
Yeah, but my little query would be, if, for example, there is a being and there is no limits, there's no parameters holding it back, and therefore it can be maxed out. Why should we max it out in the attribute of benevolence to infinity and not malevolence?
Yeah,
It
I,
doesn't make
I
any
agree.
sense,
I agree. That's
right?
gonna be the first line of argument for against them.
Yeah,
I totally agree. Yeah.
exactly. And furthermore, if it has no limits, etc. Again, it'll be a reiteration of, if it has no limits, it does. I just can't see where you get this idea that every single attribute is maxed out, right? And let me just rehabilitate my initial point. I thought of a better way to explain it. If, for example, the universe is infinitely spatial and not time bound, there's a multiverse and there's an infinite number of multiverse. This is completely hypothetical. I'm making it up. I'm just giving you a logical possibility. It could be that the first 10 billion universes contain planets and the remaining don't, right? Or something like that, whatever that
Yeah,
means.
I mean,
Yeah,
that
this is what.
that number could be any huge number,
Mm.
but still limited number, basically, right?
Yes, yes. And that's what I meant. I don't know why I didn't think of that when you were objecting to what I was saying. But something as simple as that. That's what I kind of mean. That it could very now. Of course, if every other universe, in this multiverse, if every other universe contains planets, right? Then eventually, and you imagine an infinite number of multiverses, then it's like odd numbers and or even numbers. Imagine 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to infinity. You're going to have an infinite number of odd numbers, and you're going to have an infinite number of even numbers. Similarly, you're going to have an infinite number of universes that have no planets, and you're going to have an infinite number of universes that has planets, right? So, so that's one situation. But another situation could be very well be that only a small subset in this massive set of universes contain planets. Maybe the first 1 billion or something. You don't want to talk about first. Anywhere on the set, 1 billion. Anywhere on this set, there's 1 billion, right? Universes that only those contain planets, and that's it. That's completely logically possible, right? So you can have infinite space, infinite universes, but finite planets. So why do we get this idea that everything will be maxed out to the nth degree? Infinite
Exactly.
degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does one more thing is, what is perfection basically? Perfection in what sense basically? This guy, I mean, Mansoor said, right? Why does it have to be perfect? Because he can't be, if he is imperfect, he has deficiencies basically, right? Uh, my question is, what are these things basically? In what sense do you think? Because it's because of your definitions, that's how you think, or is there a logical kind of a argument that you present based on which you are saying it has to be perfect
Yeah.
in
Exactly.
these attributes or whatever,
Exactly. So there's an implicit maybe connotation in perfection that it has to be moral, and that might be a subjectivity applying to it. But the idea
Exactly.
that there is a cause that's not limited by anything else, and even if you maximize it, therefore, maybe it's a subjective sleight of hand or tinge or imposition of our anthropomorphic tendencies to think that this thing 1400 billion years ago, prior to that, whatever that means, right? The origin of the cosmos is unlimited and therefore has to be moral, right? That seems to be highly specious,
Dubious, yeah, dubious.
exactly, dubious, better word than species.
Yeah,
Dubious move, because it's very anthropocentric. Why should it be
exactly.
perfect in that way, right? It's highly strange to, if people were being honest, even if you had to kind of max out many of these attributes, you may even say that it might be maxed out in certain attributes in a way that human beings don't even understand, right? Like the idea that it has to be benevolent over malicious, right? You can make the argument that the fact that this being is so infinitely different to us that we can't make certain judgments about it. In fact, that's what they say. What a lot of theists say when it comes to like skeptical theism, right? When it comes to the problem of evil, which I think, if you're a skeptical theist making arguments from the idea that we have limited capacities, you do create a bat for your own back, right? And in this circumstance, you can easily say, how could you predict the qualities of an infinite being? You're saying to me, for example, we should be agnostic about the amount of evil, which cannot be on the face of it reconcilable with a benevolent God, because we have a limited point of view. We can't make judgments about the infinite or infinite being. But you're able to make judgments about an infinite being having benevolence, apparently. That seems to be an inconsistency or contradiction, right? So
Right.
somebody who's not a skeptical theist may not be subject to that, but you can still make the argument out of humility, let's say, right? You can be an atheist who's consistently skeptical about the problem of evil, going that it's maybe true that we can't make judgments about whether evil is reconcilable with an infinite being, because we don't know what an infinite being is like. We can't really put any parameters to it. We can't say it can't do this or that, because it might have infinite. Our expectations in the finite world doesn't give us enough ground to make conclusive judgments about the infinite. An atheist can be like that, but consistently he may then think, well, at the same time, I can't really say much about contingency arguments. I can't say much about the Kalam argument, and I can't even if I think that the initial conditions of the universe are such that there has to be a creator. That creator will necessarily have X or Y attribute infinitely, right? Because I don't know what an infinite being will possess. It might be infinitely malicious, for example.
Right. All right. Hey, Abdul. Why is there double L in your name? Can you explain it to us, Abdul? Okay. Madan, what I'm gonna do is, I don't have any more shots. I think I have one more shot, but that might not be as appealing, probably. But we'll still run if we don't have anybody else.
Let me just say one more thing. Let me just say one
Yeah,
more
yeah.
thing.
Let me just.
You search, and let me just say one more thing.
Yeah, no. Just let them. Let me tell this to everybody, anybody, and everybody who wants to join and come in as a guest caller. Please do so. Madan, yes. Finish your point.
Yeah, I mean, if you establish that the Kalam cosmological argument is right, let's say, and you may think, for example, therefore, you must have a mind or something, and that there must be a being who created it, and he has to exist eternally. I think the best that you've established by ruling out the possibility of an infinite regress, by ruling out all the natural causes, let's say, by establishing that there has to be a first cause that is uncaused, that is a mind. The best that you've established that it has to be a mind that has to be eternal. I don't think you can from that then assume that because it's something eternal, that it has to be maxed out in X, Y, Z qualities. At that point, the arguments for it become very weak, unless you have supplementary arguments. Let's say revelation, let's say fine-tuning or type of stuff. You may be able to then increase the likelihood that he's at least has to be a bit of a designer and knowledgeable about the universe, but you still don't get omnipotence, because you don't need omnipotence to create a finite universe. And similarly, you may then try and establish moral characteristics from revelation, but then you have to confront something like the problem of evil, right? And when you confront like the problem of evil, and if you go down the route of, let's say, skeptical theism, or you can't, you have to be neutral about God's moral character, then you already
Yusuf, Madan, hold on. Yusuf, can you mute yourself? Yusuf, just give us 5 minutes. Just give us 5 minutes.
Yusuf, how you doing? You okay?
Yeah, brother. Hello.
Hello, hi.
Yusuf, how are you doing? Yeah.
How are you,
keep your mouth a little bit away from your mic, basically, because your breath is sounding louder than your voice.
Okay.
I thought he's gonna say your breath smells.
Actually, I'm in a room. It's so noisy. It's brother. Listen, I have a question, and can I ask in Hindi because my English is not that good. Can I ask, sir?
This is this is an English stream, so why don't you come on a? But now since you are here already, so I'll let you ask. But next time when you
Yes.
come to our Hindi Urdu stream.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I'll do is I'll translate it from our end, basically.
Okay.
But make sure that your question is short and not too long.
या भाई, मेरा सवाल ये है कि मतलब मैं एग्नोस्टिक हूँ, है ना? मैं उस लेवल पे हूँ। अभी मैं बना हूँ, या लाइक इट्स 2 महीने पहले, ठीक है? मैं मुस्लिम हूँ, ठीक है? बोर्न मुस्लिम फैमिली में हूँ, और मेरा भाई एक मौलाना है, ठीक है? एंड तो भाई मैंने बहुत कुछ मतलब ढूँढा वगैरह, बहुत सालों से ढूँढ रहा हूँ वैसे मैं, बट नाउ आई एम कन्फर्म्ड दैट मैं नहीं मानता ये सब में। तो बट मैं अभी भी इस चीज़ को लेके थोड़ा-सा कन्फ्यूज़ हूँ, कॉन्शसनेस को लेकर के। मतलब मेरे को ये बताइए कि हम जो ये कॉन्शसनेस है, इसको हम अ, जैसे सैम हैरिस है ना? ही इज़ एन फेमस, मतलब ही इज़ अ फेमस एथियस्ट, और वो भी कहते हैं कि जो कॉन्शसनेस है वो मतलब दिमाग का, मतलब जैसे वो कहता है कि मटेरियल मटेरियल नहीं है, मतलब ये चीज़ भी कॉन्शसनेस। तो मेरे को ये समझाइए कि ये मेरे को ये साबित कर दीजिए कि ये दिमाग का ही हिस्सा है।
Okay, so आपका सवाल हो गया?
जी
Okay,
भाई।
so Madan probably understood a little, some parts of it. So Madan, and for you and for everybody who's listening, right? So what Yusuf is saying, Yusuf is a new agnostic. Basically, he's a new kid on the block, probably 2
MashaAllah.
months old. Mashallah, Masha science, Masha science, right? So he's a new agnostic, but his brother is a Maulana. I don't know. I can't say confirmedly what he's telling. I mean, we trust you, Yusuf. Okay, if you say so.
जी भाई, जी।
Uh, okay. आप कहाँ से हो, by the way? Where are you from? If
अ,
you just tell the
मैं
country. Huh?
इंडिया भाई।
India. Okay. So he's from India, है ना? So what he's saying is he's still confused about one thing. Now he's like very confirmed about this his newly adopted stance, but he's confused about consciousness, right?
हुँ,
And he's talking about Sam Harris, and even he's saying that Sam Harris thinks that the consciousness has to be something outside of the brain, right? So Yusuf, shall I answer you in English? English में जवाब चलेगा?
हाँ भाई, दे सकते हो, समझ तो जाता हूँ मैं।
Okay.
इट्स ओके।
So English, you'll understand Mahadan's English as well, right? That's fine, no?
या।
Okay. So my answer is there is nothing that binds consciousness to be just materialist, basically, right? Originating from your brain. However, we have a more logical or likely, what do you call, likelihood of it being a material consciousness. Consciousness might be emanating, emerging property of brain, basically, right? How that happens, हमारी उसकी जो nitty-gritties है, we still don't know the nitty-gritties of it. That is a possibility, right? Nobody has discounted that possibility as yet. And you can still be an atheist and think that consciousness is some, abstract thing out there, right?
हुँ।
Without there being a God, right? God is
मैं
not
समझ गया आपको।
God is not necessary to have a consciousness out there, and it could be just in the fabric of the space time, basically. Uh,
या,
if you have read
Yeah.
physics, right? It could be
हुँ,
just it could be just the a basic field like the boson field, basically, right? A
जी
bosonic
भाई।
field, basically. It could be a consciousness pervasive in the entire universe, right? Or entire multiverse, right?
जी भाई,
And
असल में
it
ना,
could be
जी, मेरा देखो, मैं यही सोच रहा था, मैं मतलब एक यही था कि ना,
Madin, you wanted to add something to it? Yusuf bhai,
No,
just
let him finish. Let
okay.
Yusuf finish.
Yusuf.
नहीं, यही दिमाग में आ रहा था कि मतलब अगर चलो कॉन्शियसनेस मतलब मटेरियलिस्टिक चीज़ नहीं भी है, तो मतलब इससे गॉड का कोई लेना-देना नहीं है ना? ये कहना चाह रहे हो ना भाई आप?
हाँ, बिल्कुल। मतलब आपको गॉड के लिए अलग मतलब कोई अगर कोई इफ somebody tries to prove to you that consciousness is something outside of human brain, and that's why God. It's a fallacy basically, right? Because it doesn't follow. यही मैंने That's what I tried to tell you, that consciousness could be something of its own, a fabric of space-time, fabric separate from space-time, anything basically. It doesn't have to be something, as soon as you found out that your brain, consciousness is outside of brain, and that's why God has to exist, it doesn't follow, right? That logic is a fallacious logic, basically.
भाई मेरे को एक और बात लगती है, मेरे को बताना सही हूँ कि मैं नहीं, शायद मैं कॉन्शियसनेस को सही से समझता भी नहीं हूँ, मेरे को ऐसा लगता है। पता है मतलब मेरे दिमाग में ये चीज़ आती है, मैंने सुना भी है ये कहीं पे कि कॉन्शियसनेस वैसे है क्या? मेरे को आप थोड़ा-सा एक 30 सेकंड के लिए बता देंगे, 20-30 सेकंड में क्या क्या होती है कॉन्शियसनेस?
So, Madan, what is consciousness? He's asking. He's still confused. He's not sure what is consciousness, basically.
You don't know what consciousness is. So let me ask you what you understand about it so far. What is consciousness to you so far?
वी कैन थिंक, मतलब हम अपने मतलब दिमाग में ही ये सोच सकते हैं कि भाई हमारा दिमाग ही कहाँ से आया, हम सोच ही उसी से रहे, मतलब सोचने की एक क्षमता, सही गलत की एक वो चीज़ हमें इख्तियार है इस चीज़ का कि हम कुछ भी हम सोच सकते हैं, हमारी सोच और इमेजिनेशन हमारी कहाँ तक जा सकती है, ये मतलब हमें भी नहीं पता। मतलब मेरे को ये
No,
लगता है यही।
he's saying that his ability to think and all those things, basically. But
Yeah.
go ahead. You
No, I
understood,
mean,
Madan, right? What he
yeah,
said?
I understand. So Yusuf, I don't understand in terms of why you're confused about consciousness, because I think you do understand it, right? You're go on. You want to say something?
मतलब मेरे को ऐसा लगता है कि जैसे हमारे जैसे सर में दर्द होता है या फिर मतलब कुछ भी ऐसी ब्रेन की जो ऐसी कुछ वो हो जाती है, तो अब देखो, शायद मेरे को बताना है, ये कॉन्शसनेस ही है ना जो हमें, जैसे हम हमारे सर में दर्द हो रहा है, तो ये क्या चीज़ है? कॉन्शसनेस का कोई इसमें कुछ है क्या भाई?
See, you have to understand consciousness in your experiences, basically. Ability to perceive your experiences is what consciousness is, basically. मैं
हाँ, मेरे को
crudely
लगता
बता
है,
रहा
देखो
हूँ. I'm
मेरे को
telling you
लग
crudely, basically, right? So that self-awareness is consciousness, basically. You understand?
Yeah. So let
The
me
ability
try
to
and
feel, yeah.
let me also try and give you like an easy sketch of things. So you have atoms, you have trees, you have bricks. They are all solid, right?
जी।
You have a carpet. It's all solid, made out of atoms, molecules, chemistry, right? You can feel
ओके,
it, you can touch it, right? It has a weight.
यस,
It can conduct electricity. You can put a, it
यस,
has a mass, 25 kg, whatever. It has a size. Does your consciousness have a size? Does your thinking have a size? Does your feelings have a size? Can you touch it? Where is it?
नो,
That's the mystery of consciousness. Consciousness is weightless, right? It's like it seems like it. That's what I'm saying. So the mystery of consciousness is that unlike all these other things that are objects, consciousness is not an object. It doesn't seem like it. That's the first
या
philosophical mystery. The first philosophical mystery of consciousness, right? It's this thing that allows us to have experiences, our desires, feelings. But where is your feelings? What is your feelings made out of? Does it have a weight? Does it conduct electricity?
या
Is it
या
made out of molecules? Some people think no. Consciousness, your feelings can't be molecules. Your feelings can't be atoms. Atoms and feelings are different, right? Other people think no. Consciousness is a product of certain chemical reactions in your brain. It comes out of the brain and therefore dependent on the brain as well. They're not the same thing, but they're together, right? It's like a Philo said, a field that emerges after certain chemical reactions. So some people in philosophy think the consciousness is indeed physical in its nature, just like atoms, molecules. It's just that. Other people think that it's a product of, dependent upon those things. They come together, but they're not the same, right?
या
I'm not sure if I confused you more or if that's been a bit
No,
more.
no, 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 I'm not confused, brother. I got it. But मेरे को ऐसा लगता है जैसे दिमाग, अगर सर में दर्द हो रहा है तो वो चीज़ मतलब एक हमें मतलब फील हो रहा है, ये भी एक मतलब कॉन्शियसनेस का हिस्सा ही है, वो उसी में आ जाता है। पर हम देखो, हम एक चीज लेते हैं, जैसे हम एक गोली खाते हैं, टैबलेट खाते हैं, और उससे वो सही हो जाता है, क्योंकि अब जो मेडिसिन है, मतलब टैबलेट है, वो तो एक मटेरियलिस्टिक चीज है।
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And that's
हम्म
good. That's so all of these things that
You
you're saying.
understand it
Yeah.
very well. I think you
Yeah.
understand it well, basically,
Yeah.
right? So your
हम्म
reasoning is good enough as well.
Yeah.
या
And I think also Sam Harris, he may think that the brain and consciousness may be two different things, but he also thinks that the brain and the consciousness are together. The consciousness needs the brain.
Yeah, they can't
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah. He's
Away
not
या
saying
from or from each other, basically.
yeah, he doesn't believe in souls. He doesn't believe in like soul, God's soul, somewhere else. And just that the consciousness and the brain, after you die, the soul goes to heaven. He doesn't believe that. He thinks that consciousness is a result of many chemical reactions. It emerges from those
आई गॉट
reductive states, bottom states, right? From the bottom
या
comes the above state of consciousness. And without the bottom, you don't have the above. Without brains, consciousness stops. He thinks that, right?
या
And
आई
good
गॉट
evidence is what you said as well, and there's too much evidence that the brain and the consciousness are at least connected, if not the same. I would say they're the same. I believe they're the same, right? I
या
lean in that direction. But there's too much evidence. For example, if you damage your brain, you damage your consciousness. If you take a drug, you alter your consciousness, right? If you take an anesthetic, you can stop feeling pain, right?
या
If you look at a split brain patient, chop the brain into two halves, you have two consciousnesses now with two different personalities. All of your personality that was on your right hemisphere of your brain is on the right, on the rest of the information on the left hemisphere is on the left. And when you divide it, you have two separate consciousnesses with the expected qualities. Like all the information that the brain has, the consciousness has as well. That's a bit weird. If consciousness and brain were two different things, we should expect continuity of the person, even when the brain is damaged, right?
या
We should,
या
but because when you cut one into half, the consciousness turns into a half, shows that consciousness and brains are together. There's something about it, right?
या आई
So
गॉट इट
so that I would say is evidence for, it's called brain mind dependence. Mind consciousness is dependent upon the brain. Simple as that.
या थैंक यू ब्रदर। आई हैव वन मोर क्वेश्चन ब्रदर। फिलो सेपियंस भाई, आपसे पूछता है सवाल।
बोलो गो अहेड।
भाई मैंने ना यार, मतलब मैं आई वाज 1-1.5 साल हो गया, मैंने देखा है उस पे कुरान के अंदर ना, मतलब ये मैथमेटिकल काफी, मतलब मेरे को लगता है कि ये मिरेकल्स से हैं कि नंबर्स मैच करते हैं, है ना? इफ यू हैव लाइक लिसन अबाउट 19 नंबर इन द कुरान
नहीं, ये
एंड
19 नंबर तो ये रशद खलीफा का था बेसिकली। आपने पढ़ा है उसके बारे में? इजिप्शियन
नहीं
जो
भाई।
बंदा था रशद खलीफा, उसने निकाला था। और उसको आप अगर सही से इवैल्यूएट करोगे, ओके, आई एम गोना आंसर इन यूसुफ इन हिंदी और इन इंग्लिश बेसिकली, राइट? बिकॉज दिस इज एन
जी,
इंग्लिश स्ट्रीम, ओके?
ओके,
यू विल बी
ओके,
एबल टू
ओके,
अंडरस्टैंड, राइट?
ओके, ओके ब्रदर।
Yeah,
So this
rephrase the answer, the question that he asked for all.
So he's asking Madin that don't you see that there are so many miraculous things in the Quran in terms of mathematical structure of the Quran, basically, right? And he's citing this number 19 and all those things, and there are other things as well. I mean, I think one of the most the strongest proponent of it was Rashad Khalifa, right? And he was an Egyptian who was basically killed for being Yusuf. I don't know if you know that he was killed in 1996, I think, for being a heretic, basically, because what he
Oh,
did was he rejected a few even few ayat for bringing his idea together, pretty much, right? So he did quite a few different things which were not acceptable by the greater ulama, pretty much, right? So these are, and one more thing. So on a broader question of these mathematical miracles in the Quran or any book, basically, if you sit down and carefully analyze any book for years and years and years and years, you can find mathematical structure in anything, pretty much, right? I don't know if you are aware of it. There is a group of people who have found mathematical miracles in what is his name? There is a very famous book by a person. It skips my. It skips. I'm skipping the name. No. It's 18th century book.
I mean, Newton, Isaac Newton did this as well.
No. It's a novel, basically. It's a novel. It's about this sea, and it's a fish on the whale. You probably know it, Madan. It's just skipping.
Fish on the whale.
No.
Moby Dick.
Moby Dick, right?
Yeah.
Moby Dick.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So if you read about this,
Are whales fish? I thought they were mammals.
Yeah, no. It's about whale, right? It's about a whale, Moby Dick, basically, right? So
yes, you can find mathematical patterns. Is it called numerology?
Yeah, numerology, right?
Yeah, even
so
Isaac
there's a
Newton.
group.
He was Isaac Newton. He was a very avid numerologist.
No,
Yeah,
but they try to find the patterns within certain books and certain sentences and everything, right? So that's what these guys did. And if you search Moby Dick miracles, mathematical miracles, you will find numerous such miracles that are attributed to sometimes similar are attributed to Quran. Basically, that's what my point was. Basically,
yeah.
this is just one example that I'm giving. There
Thank
are
you.
crazy people doing crazy things about different books as well, pretty much, right? I mean, and some of the things that they are talking about is like, this particular verse, day and night come in 365 times or three something like that. So the day is not exactly 365. A year is not exactly 365 days. It's 365.256 days, basically, right? And that's how you have leap years, basically, to adjust for those 0.256 exactly, right? So these guys will bring anything to fool a simple mind, but a more rational mind or skeptical mind would question as to why they have done this, because nobody would think, oh yes, there are 365 days in a year, and oh yeah, this makes sense. But each and every claim of theirs can be just rejected because it seems so fake. Basically, it seems made up, pretty much.
Yeah,
you wanted to add something, huh?
No, it's all right. It's okay.
Philo bhai, right, you are talking like we humans, like जैसे हमने सितारों को देखा है ना, हमने ना उनमें भी पैटर्न्स बना लिए है ना, जैसे उनमें
exactly because it needed, yeah, exactly. So
तो ऐसे ही लोगों ने मतलब कुरान में भी, क्योंकि उसे इतना पढ़ा क्योंकि लोग पढ़ते हैं, रिलीजियस लोग तो अंधे होकर के पढ़ते हैं, आई नो, और उन्होंने फिर उसमें भी वो वही चीजें ढूंढ रहे हैं, है ना?
Right. All right, Yusuf, what I'll say is goodbye to you for now, because this is an English stream. If we talk long Hindi, then it's gonna be a injustice on that, right?
Before you go,
why don't you come?
Yusuf, before you go, what I would advise
in one of our Hindi Urdu streams, basically, right? Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay,
Yusuf,
no problem.
Before you go, what I would advise is read a book by David Hand called The Improbability Principle. He explains how through very, very large numbers you can get improbable things or rare events, and explains how coincidences can happen, how prophecies can come true, how psychics can get things correct, how mind readers, astrologers can get things correct through mere chance, right? And
I would do that.
Yeah, it also explains how you can find patterns in books, right? And the way it works is that it's simply that when you have tens of thousands of words, more than that sometimes. When you have like 300, 600 page book, you can find any pattern. When you look for patterns, you'll find a pattern through coincidence. And it can, as Philo talked about, you can find it in entirely non-religious books like Moby Dick novels. Any book that you look through, you'll find a pattern. Harry Potter, you do it for Harry. It's a challenge. Get the Harry Potter novels out, and look for any pattern.
Yeah.
Don't go looking for a specific pattern like the number 3. Find any pattern you want in anything, and you'll find patterns. You will find it. It just happens through nature. We don't know why it happens. Well, we do know why it happens. It happens because of chance, probabilities. When you have lots of words, sometimes you just hit the jackpot by chance, coincidence.
I got it.
It's like if I flip a coin 1,000 times, I will get 10 coins in a row. It happens. It's one in 1,000 chance, and people have done this before. Go on YouTube and saying getting 10 heads in a row. What's the chance of getting 10 heads in a row? 1 in 1,000. But if you keep flipping the coin 1,000 times, you will get at least one set of heads, in one set of 10 heads in a row, right? And that's what I mean. So you can do that when you have large numbers. And what do you have with books? Lots of words, large numbers, lots of time, lots of books. So you can eventually find a book that will have patterns.
Yusuf, what I'll suggest, and probably it seems like you're still very young. I'm assuming you are under 20 right now. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm 20, brother.
Okay. So it seems so from your voice. So what I'll say, and this is something that I haven't tried, and maybe even Mahadan hasn't tried. I don't know. But what you can do, and with these AIs, basically ChatGPT or whatever is out there, basically, right?
I'm
Gemini,
trying.
ChatGPT, and all those things, you can try, because they have all their models are built on all these books. So maybe write something like that, whatever book you know of very well, and find mathematical patterns and something to try out. I don't know whether it's the ChatGPT is going to give you some mathematics, but I'm assuming that ChatGPT is going to give you some patterns in any book that you ask it to do it.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
not
would
now,
try
maybe
that.
3 years, 5 years down the line, they'll be able to do it. Any book they'll be.
I would do that, brother. I would do that. Thank you so much. Tell me something, bhai. When you will do Urdu and Hindi stream?
Yeah, you subscribe to our channel, right? And
Yeah.
push on the notification bell. We'll do it one soon, pretty much, right? Usually we try to do it on weekends, basically, mostly English or Hindi. We are not too sure, and on Wednesdays, basically.
Okay, bhai. Okay.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
All right, Yusuf. Nice talking to you. All right.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
brother.
All right, Madan, how old were you when you came out of when you realized that you were
I was
no more
about 23.
religious?
I was about
23.
23. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would say I was about the same age probably when I realized that I don't find all these things. But kids these days probably I mean I think for you I would say you were like you were a philosopher in your head pretty much at that time, right? And you like instantly came out, but you had
Yes.
like very strong arguments. For me, it started with very simple arguments, pretty much, right? And then philosophy. I think for you, you loved philosophy from the very beginning, pretty much. For me, I stumbled on philosophy much later, basically. But then, I found that my arguments were, I was still able to support my arguments with philosophy, pretty much, at least my stance I could support with. So, but these days I'm really amazed that these young kids are, they have reasons. They might not be philosophically savvy, pretty much, and probably you don't even need to. Maybe not. But at least you should have at least a couple of good arguments to support your worldview or your stance, pretty much, right? Why you got out of, just like what we saw that lady, we ran that short, and she wasn't able to articulate her thoughts properly. Anyway, we have Prima Scriptura. We conversed with him last time. Prima, how are you?
Hey, how you guys doing, man? I don't know if you guys recognize New Year's or not, but Happy New Year
You
to you
know,
guys.
I think I'm open to celebrating every every festival that's out there, religious or not religious, basically, and I'm fine with having those festivities and new clothes, good food, and all those things. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, um, world would be, in my opinion, I would think world would be really barren without those cultural aspects of religion. So in some sense, I would think that uh, some of the aspects of religions are really good. At least so I think. I don't know, Mahadan, what do you think? I'll leave it to Mahadan to respond for himself.
Well, I don't necessarily. In terms of a new year, it's kind of like a measurement that you can still use, whether it had any religious or or supernatural sort of origin tale at the beginning, prior to today. So it's a good way of having a bit of a useful fiction to measure things. So it's inconsequential and probably quite practical to have stuff like that, maybe, to have like a measuring stick. But I don't look too deeply into it, because you can celebrate every week, you can celebrate every 5 minutes, but it's impractical to do that. So having like a particular sort of A to B, like 365 days a year, it's hard to reverse all of that, right? We can't just get a legislature and change everything through legislation, right? So we just end up accepting what's been laid down, and it's quite inconsequential. It's very secular, right? It's a bit like people who celebrate Christmas without really believing in Christ. It's just a fun thing, and it's a good way to kind of have organized things in terms of time limits and so on. And in that sense, it's nice. Yeah. But I'm not. If I had to recreate society, it won't be on the top of my list. Let's just put it this way: there's more worrying things in the world that I would like to improve in the world.
I no, I agree. I
Yeah,
agree. I mean, I wasn't going that deep in
yeah,
answering that.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think there are much more worrying things to take care of instead of just keeping these whatever timeless things going on, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
yeah.
actually, I wasn't referring to the seasons. I was just referring to the New Year calendar. That's why I said
All right. All
I
right.
didn't, because I would believe that would be like a scientific notation, of recognition. So that's why I said I don't know if the atheist agnostic recognizes some of these non religious dates.
Traditions, right? Dates, yeah.
Yeah. So
it depends what you mean by recognize as well. What do you mean by recognize exactly?
I mean, it's a useful thing to have, I would say, right?
Well, when I say recognize, because the only thing about the making the comment is that's like your brother. He thought I was talking about the season, but you pinned it in terms of I just said New Year. So that's what I mean when I said, well, it's just as you said, it's a measurement of time, right? And
I mean, there's loads of measurements of that. There's the Islamic New Year as well, and they might have some cultural significance for a particular thing that happened on that day. We may not accept that part,
Yeah.
So if I don't know exactly the origins of the New Year, the Gregorian calendar, etc., and exactly what happened, I can't remember. But if there's any sort of particular event, then I'm not celebrating that. I might be aware of it, and if it's a particularly moral tale, heroic tale, I may celebrate it in some sense. I might like you might celebrate a cultural figure in society that's been very good, like Martin Luther King, let's say, right? He said something very good, and if there's a moral tale behind it, maybe I'll celebrate the tale, even if it's a fiction, even if it's a fiction, right? Even if it's but in terms of, like you said, practical things, it's just a practical. But reality is, do you need it? If you look deep into it, do you really need that practical thing? You don't really need it for society.
I would think it's pretty much one of the most important thing that you would need. So without, let me just say this without you gunning at me too early, right? And it's just because I actually just made the statement on a comment on
I'll put
another
the gun away.
platform. Because the first thing that God created was space, time, and matter. Or let me just put it this way: that was one of the things that was done. And I'm thinking that we all need time and measurement, and that's just the way in which our solar system, everything works. The revolution of day or night, in terms of how long that is, how many times it goes around, and it also affects the seasons. So it dictates, in terms of whether it be spring, winter, summer, or fall, as they say. So time, I would think, is one of the most important factors, and not only time in the sense of time, but also its different demarcation, even in terms of how it relates to us. So
Yeah,
No, yeah.
it is useful because of the agrarian societies had their calendars divided into these things basically, because their crops were basically annually, timed because of this calendar basically, and that's how it came to be basically. So you see a usefulness of this calendar basically, right? And it's almost it's not just in some societies, it's almost universally in all the societies, all the agrarian societies basically.
yeah, I
Anyway,
think
before we go there, Prima, let's welcome Keshav. Keshav, what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk with Prima for a bit, and if you want to stay up until then, it's okay.
Sounds good.
Because you I think I'm seeing you for the first time over here. I don't think so you have been here on our channel before.
No, this is the first time for myself too. I just like religious discussion, and I saw there was a live discussion going on here, so I just was curious what is the conversation about, and I just love religion-based discussion, so I just popped in.
Sure. You okay to wait for a bit
Yeah, not a
once we
problem.
finish our conversation
Absolutely.
with Prima? Sorry, Prima.
No, it's okay. He can interact. I got no problem. It's four of us. I guess we can all take turns. So no, I got no problem, with it as well.
All right,
It's
sure.
up to you. You're the host. So I'm just saying, I don't have a problem,
No, I was thinking maybe you were going to pose us a challenge or something.
Oh,
and
well,
we can
last
move
week,
from there.
yeah, last week, we did have some discussions that we didn't agree on. So I don't know where we wanna jump off from today. We started talking about time.
Yeah, I think Madin and I would like to, go a little. I think maybe we didn't conduct our question properly, and maybe I'm guilty as well as probably Madin as well. I think we needed to move on from that conversation and asking what you consider to be natural processes, basically. And Madin's question, and probably both of us tried to pose Madin's question to you, an argument rather. And maybe it seems like that we should have moved on from that to asking you, and maybe our difference, and clarify it to me if I'm wrong here, Mahadin and Prima, both of you. What I thought was the difference in you saying, when Mahadin said, do you think that the natural processes are natural processes, and can you show a direct hand of God into those natural processes? And what I understood from you was that you were not willing to give in to that question. Basically, you didn't answer that question basically. So maybe let's start from there.
I think I did answer him, and I told him that the natural processes that he was referring to had inbuilt codes and operation. So that's why I'm saying.
So his question was exactly, and I'll maybe Madan can clarify himself. He says, "Can you show a direct hand of those things?" So you can't basically. That's the. So your
If I
answer to
can
his
show-
question is,
Right.
your answer to his question would be no, basically, right?
No, you're putting words in my mouth. When he says show, what do he mean show?
Okay, Mahadan.
Because-
Yeah,
take
no.
it.
So I was trying to explain the reasoning as to why I don't think there's a designer, right? So these
Right.
that's why I broke it down into steps. So the first step that I was trying to establish, right, that when you see, for example, a natural process, do you directly witness a creator creating it? Because that is the way we kind of distinguish between a natural process and a non-natural process. Let's say you're making a watch, right? Now, I know you tried to answer that by saying that the natural process itself behind the veil has a creator, right? It creates the codes or whatever information, right?
Correct.
But that's not the question I was asking you, right? I was just trying to establish whether or not there's a direct evidence of a creator, because that
Right,
would have,
and-
yeah, that's it, and that would have to be a no, because that, your answer to that by saying that the code itself is evidence of creation. Fine, that's what you believe, but I was trying to explain my argument, because the argument that I'm giving is also the argument that I believe, I personally take to be the reason why I think the likelihood of a creator is low.
Well, I
right?
mean, in you asking me the question now and answering the question for me, don't make your answer correct, right? so I'm saying that we can agree to disagree, but
I know, but if you
but in
remember
the
what
question,
I said, the question was, do you directly see a creator? The question
I
isn't
said-
whether or not there is the evidence of a creator that you can infer from the information.
yes, and that's what I said, yes, because
Which one did you say yes to?
I said yes to the question because I said, where does the natural process, name any one of them, gets the let's say, and we use biology, and that was one of the examples that you use. Say, for example, a cell, where does it get its DNA? Where does it get its protein, its different molecules that are being
So
formed?
that was sure.
Yeah.
That wasn't my question, though. My question was, is there any direct is in the way you see a watchmaker create the watch? A watchmaker has a factory. My question is there any evidence of a creator creating it like that? Direct empirical evidence of it.
Yeah, creating a cell
Yeah.
or something that gives you,
Yeah.
Well, right. So
yeah.
that's what, and this is where I think we have a divergence of
No,
your.
it's not because no, you have to say no to that. Right?
No,
believe,
let me answer the question. You can answer the question for me and say I have to say no, because my point would be is that you have no natural processes that you can state that is natural, and that's my point. So I'm dealing with the fact that in your paradigm and in your understanding that there is nothing such as natural. It has all been created, and it was created with a function and also a coding information to execute a particular process, right? And within that execution,
all right.
there is a designer.
Primer. You're not getting the point, though. You're not getting the point. You're answering the question, but you're misunderstanding the question. Right? You're answering it almost indirectly. You're thinking it's a loaded question almost. Is that what you're thinking?
No. I'm
right?
trying to tell you. No, all right, let me put it this way. You're forming a premise, right?
Yeah.
In your question that something is natural, right? And you defined what natural was.
No. You don't have to.
Wait,
I don't have to use words like natural at all.
Well,
I'm saying.
that's what.
All right. Let me give you an example. When there's a chemical reaction where sodium turns into sodium chloride, right? In those steps, is there a visible evidence of a creator, like a person? Is there visible evidence, tangible evidence directly of the creator?
Right. So you're talking.
Just answer.
Well, let me.
Is there tangible evidence of the creator? No, I'm not trying to say. What you're doing is the following. You're saying the sodium and the chloride, where did that information come from? I think this is intelligent, and you're making an inference that there was a creator behind it.
But you're making the inference.
I'm not doing that anything like that yet. I'm not doing anything, not at this stage. Not at this stage. All I'm acknowledging is that when the sodium reacts with the chloride, there is no tangible, visible creator there. Unlike when a watchmaker creates a watch.
Right.
Right?
So here and understand my point, right? You're talking about a chemical reaction in your example where it is the elements already exist in a particular form.
I know.
Right?
In that state.
Let me finish. I listen to you.
Sorry, not Philo. Prima, you don't get it.
Well, let me finish.
I don't understand why you feel so defensive about this.
No, but I'm saying let me finish my thought because I listen to you.
I get your point. Why can't you
let
say...
me finish. What I'm saying is you want to answer my question and also think for me at the same time. And I'm saying just allow me. If we want to conversate, I don't know what you're trying to like conversate at yourself with me at the same time. I don't know how that's going to work, but okay, but go ahead.
All right, Prema, you get 1 minute to finish your thought. Martin, let him finish his thought.
Okay, go on.
Yeah. So that's all I'm saying. That the premise that I'm trying to let you understand is that when you use the words natural, or for any example that you bring, and you tell me, okay, there's a process where sodium turns to salt. That was your example. And I'm saying that in us understanding that if I mix or if I agitate or if I add something to this particular substance, that this can now change, right? And I'm saying that of itself, right, is not something natural. It is something that you or humans of themselves, us, right, have found out that if I put one substance with the next, or if I agitate, this is what this substance will do.
All right,
my point,
Prema.
but let me finish. My point is that the substance of itself has built in it a structure, a code, DNA, information there that makes that process, that end result that you trying to achieve happen. And that's what I'm getting at. I am not coming from the point of you trying to say that something is natural because you like the watchmaker. I'm saying, no, where did the watchmaker get the material from in order to now form the parts of the watch? That's my premise that I'm coming from.
Right. So, Prima, clearly you have trouble understanding and comprehending what I'm saying, right? I have not assumed that there is no creator behind it. I have not assumed that it's just merely natural. If by nearly natural we mean, for example, that there is no creator behind it. I'm simply saying that here's a process and asking you the question whether or not there is a person, a consciousness, a mind that you can actually visually see in that process. Let's say when sodium bonds into sodium chloride at sea, or do we say, for example, the water's mixed, then the sodium bonds with the chloride and the salt forms, etc. Is there in those steps, is there an additional step in the formation of sodium chloride or electrolysis or whatever it is called, when bonding, chemical bonding? Is there an additional step where you have to invoke, then a person did this and that? That's all. That's all that I'm asking. I know already that you think any information has to have a creator. I already know that, right? What I'm saying, my question is to explain to you why eventually the conclusion of my premises is going to be that we have good reason to think that this is natural. But this premise that I'm trying to analyze now is not establishing that it is natural. It's just trying to establish whether or not do we see a visible evidence of a creator here? Actual visible evidence of the creator himself.
Right.
That's it, or not.
So here's what I would interject with, right? Using your example of the salt, using the same process, would it ever change from being salt?
You're not answering the question.
No, yeah, I'm answering.
Very simple. Do you see any visible hand of a...
I said, yes, there is a creator, because I'm saying if you take that same process, you do it 10 billion times, same process, will you get a different result? Nothing changes. Your same process. Do you always get salt?
Look.
No, do you always get salt?
I don't know whether you're being dishonest or this is just a comprehension issue, right? Can you not see you're making an indirect inferential claim, inference? Like you see a code.
You're using an objective reasoning here.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I agree you can infer a creator from the code. I agree with that. Fine. Let's put that to a side. We'll analyze that in a second. That's a different argument, right? Like just like you see a code, or you see a set of codes, and you go, there must be a coder, right? What I'm saying is, in when you see the codes, do you see the coder himself? I'm not saying you can't make an inference there's a coder. I'm saying, can you see the coder?
Yes, and I'm saying because that is the way the substances were designed.
You're not making
because
any
that's
sense.
why let me finish. That's why I asked you. That's why I asked you.
Okay,
If
let's
we did-
let
if we did, that's not-
Keshav come in.
That's not. Let me just 10 seconds. That's why I'm
Sure.
saying, if I use your example of salt, does that salt ever turn to cheese in that same process with those elements? Do they ever change?
What
its
does
form?
that even matter? What does that even matter?
Because in your paradigm, wait.
No,
In your
no,
paradigm,
no, no, no,
wait. What I'm saying is, if the
Prima,
process,
you're not making any sense. Let's give Kashaf a chance to talk.
So
Yeah,
I think
no, listen. If you want to continue with the ad hominems, I could be that way too. But I'm just saying, I'm just
What ad
noting it.
hominems?
No. If you're
No, he
saying
just
that
said
I
you're
can't,
not making any sense. Yeah.
well, I could.
perfectly
Okay, no
fine.
problem. I'm just saying that. Just know
Look,
that
That's
if
not
I
an ad
begin,
you
hominem.
sound so defensive. It's ultimately
no, it's not a matter of defense. What I'm trying to
You
say,
know-
because last week, wait.
Prema, to be honest, that is not an ad
No, I'm
hominem,
just saying
basically.
I can use the same wording and say you talking foolishness just the same way. Once you okay with it, okay? So let's
No,
go. No problem.
see, there is a difference.
Well, that's my
between
point. If
foolishness
he is trying to make that inference to me,
okay, let Keshav come in and see.
So I
what
think,
he
Prima,
has to say.
I'm kind of on your side. I'm a theist as well. I believe in the existence of God, obviously a different God than you believe in. But I think I and you are both on the same, where we believe that every article, like for example, if sodium mixed with chloride and that salt happening out of that is the engineering or the design of a creator. So I think that part, both of us agree. And I think what Mahdeen wants to say, okay, that also is a side. That's not important. What he's asking is, do you actually see somebody doing that,
Yes.
like an angel doing it, mixing it together? And I think
Exactly. That's all.
and I think what you would agree, and I would agree too, is that the angel or a godly presence is not mixing them together, but he doesn't have to. That is my point of view. He has made this. It's almost like when you drop. Once God creates gravity, he doesn't have to physically pull everything down when somebody loses or lets go of anything. He has created the gravity. He has created the rules, and now everything else will follow those
Yes.
rules. So he doesn't have to
Kashaf, it's like it's automated. Once you've created like a computer, it can last by itself, even if the computer creator is dead.
and that's
Like,
what
you
I've
can-
been trying to tell him 2
No,
weeks
you've
now.
not. Kashaf
My
has
brother,
understood
I just asked. No, that's
wait,
not.
Prima. Kashaf
But I just asked you. I just asked you if the process.
No,
would change.
Prima. Let me finish what I'm saying. Kashaf has understood the distinction and the difference. That one is an inference that you can make that here's a code, and the code must have a creator, and the other one is about whether or not you see the actual creative process. And I just want you to answer that second part, which is a no, right? Whatever thing that you believe, like Kashaf, which is that the creator created the code and the code then runs by itself, automated. I get it. I understand that, right? But Kashaf could answer the question. Why could Kashaf answer the question, but you can't?
No, because just the way I stated it, I'm challenging your premise at the same time in my answer. Because I keep asking you, using your same examples every week, and you didn't even answer. You haven't even answered. I said, using the same example process that you just stated, if you do the same process 50 billion times, would you get cheese other than salt?
Yeah, you're just dodging the question, basically.
No, but Kashaf, you understand my point, right?
Yeah, I get you. I get what you're saying.
This is how I'm saying it.
Question.
You're saying, let me put it this way. You're saying that based on how you said, like, for example, gravity, and that's a great example. It's there, right? Just as you said, God doesn't have to come and pull along everybody, precisely. But my point is, I'm not dealing with a segment or a facet of the process. I am dealing with the early engineering of what is done and what is put in place. So that's why I'm saying if you use the process,
Look,
even
Prima, you seem like we're trying to convert you, and we don't really care. I was just trying to. You asked us a question last time. Why I believe there is no designer, and I was trying to explain my reasoning on a premise-based level, like first premise, second premise, third premise. For some reason, whenever I talk about the premise, and I want you to answer whether or not you see visible evidence of a creator, which is actually essential for my case to go through, right? You want to counter it by complicating it with something that's irrelevant, that was not even asked, right? Because I've already acknowledged and granted to you that that's what you believe, right? That there's a creator behind the process, right? Because you think it's intelligent, right? Whereas I was just trying to establish that can we at least agree to the premise, right? That there is no visible evidence of a
no, but what and what I respond
at that stage.
But what I responded, and this is how I responded to you.
It's like you saying the following. Doesn't it say doesn't historians believe that Jesus existed or something?
Right.
You know,
And
it's like
this,
that. Then it's me not answering that question straightforwardly and saying something like, God is immoral. Since God is immoral, I believe that even if it's silly, right? It's going into a different topic. Can't you just answer straightforwardly?
Right. So here was my
Jesus. Historians believe Jesus exists. The questions of God's morality is different, and similarly, the question of whether or not the overall thing as a creator, which I know you have a reasoning for, is different to accepting this one premise that in this specific process, is there any evidence of a creator?
Right.
No.
So this is what I said, right, in your response, and I told you that you're being a hypocrite and you're being double standard, because the mere fact is you have no evidence to support nothing of what you said last week and what you're saying today. Based on our premise and our paradigm, we can have a logical answer for the processes, and even from what you term to be natural and you shied away from it, and then you keep moving the goalposts. All I said was that, hey, I know you don't believe what I believe, and that is fine. We can agree to disagree, but
Prima,
you can't ask me. But you can't. Well, you can't. But you can't. Well, let me finish.
No.
Well, let me finish.
I'm getting tired of your nonsense, to be honest. Let's talk.
Well, let me finish.
Because he seemed like more.
No, because you're being challenged, and that's what I'm saying. Okay, prove any of what you said. Prove any of what you said.
I already did in terms of comments.
What did you prove it by?
You may want.
What did you prove it by? Give me one evidence. One evidence.
Yeah, you've probably not read any of philosophy. Maybe read David Hume's arguments on the.
I don't have to read that. Give me one evidence. One evidence.
What do you mean? I already gave you an argument last time, but
I'm asking for evidence, just like how you're asking us for evidence. Give us your evidence, then. If
all
what
right,
I'm
hold on.
saying,
Let me arbitrate it basically. So Prima, you still dodging, quite honestly. You're still dodging the main question. Do you have a direct?
It's not that. It's because he's disingenuous and he doesn't want to answer it properly, and he wants to just play these games and assume the worst and try to use a strategy to try and fill in the blanks, so that he doesn't have to accept something like, all right, in this process I don't see. All he has to say, in this process there is no God, doesn't come down and create it himself. That's all he has to say. All Christians believe this. All Jewish people believe this. All Muslims believe this. We agree.
99.999% of the Christians believe in that.
And we agree that, for example, if there is a God, he's not going to be making it like that. He probably set the processes into motion, right? All we just want to try to get you to accept is that, and we both should be in agreement of that premise. After that premise, I will build to the conclusion and explain why there's no designer. Not that premise alone, but Prima cannot intellectually be honest.
Provide the evidence.
Simple as that. And look what it's saying. Provide the evidence. This is the process. This was the process of my reasoning. This was the process of my reasoning to actually go to a conclusion.
Provide the evidence, because that's not what you said last week. You flipping on what you said last week.
I don't say.
Look,
Prima,
you're being disingenuous.
No.
You listen. Let me respond. Let me respond. I don't know. Every time I try to respond.
Hold on. Let's try to have a civil debate, right? A civil discussion, right? Let's go. Madan, you want to go? Just
No,
15 seconds, 30
I have
seconds.
no interest in talking to Prima. I have no interest in talking to Prima because he doesn't have the intellectual capability and honesty and moral integrity to have this conversation properly. Right, so there's no need for it. I don't talk to people who can't even answer.
How can
a
an
simple
atheist have
question,
morality?
right?
How
See, this is what I'm
can an
saying.
atheist
Yeah?
define morality?
Prima,
Have
This
you,
is what I'm saying.
Prima?
You want to go from one place to another. Prima,
No, that's what you're saying.
Prima, if you notice, we never asked you where's the evidence. We don't talk like that. We're philosophers. We believe in analytical arguments. So we don't have such a simple point of reference where you have to have physical evidence.
I think Prima, this is not a jibe at you. This is not a jibe at you. Read some philosophy. Come back in maybe a few weeks. Read
You
some
guys are
philosophy.
being challenged, and that's the whole premise.
You
that-
don't understand.
Prima,
you all are
Prima,
being hypocritical.
Prima, I interact. Prima,
Wait.
Prima,
Madin,
I interact.
wait.
No.
Madin,
Prima,
wait. Hold on.
I interact with far more sophisticated theists, very challenging ones, people that I can give genuine credit to, right? Because I have a philosophical background, and trust me, I give credit where it's due.
What does that?
I
What
know-
does
I
that
know-
have to do with
I
anything?
know strong
You being
philosophy.
philosophy doesn't.
So my point is,
doesn't mean nothing of what
my
you're saying
no,
is
because you said you're being challenged. I get
doesn't
challenged
mean
more
nothing of what
specifically.
you're saying is
Madin,
true.
Challenge is good.
My
Disingenuousness
point
is
being-
not, and you're disingenuous. That's the difference.
Madin, hold on. Yeah, quiet, both of you. Prima, first thing first, you gave away your cards. You showed your cards. Once you said that atheists don't have morality. I think you need to read a few serious, good philosophy books. Understand what all arguments are there for, these ethical theories. Basically, you haven't come across any ethical theories, pretty much. I think this is like not even a primary student of philosophy would ask these things, basically, right?
Provide me an example of morality
He's just going on a
outside of
different
any.
topic. No,
Wait.
Not on honest
Wait,
conversation.
wait,
Look, Mike. Here's the issue.
Let me, and that's the point. You don't like to be challenged. So I'm asking a simple question. If you're saying I'm uneducated,
Prima.
I'm asking a simple question.
No, Prima. My battery is going to go.
Give me one moral example.
My battery is going to go. I'm on 1%, right?
No.
So there's
problem.
not much of a point. But you've just changed the topic, and you just want to jump.
I didn't change it. Your brother picked up the point.
Change the topic.
I didn't change it.
Need to go.
But here's my question. Okay, if I'm unlearned,
you started attacking by saying.
But hear the question.
Morality.
Let's hear the question. Hear the question.
Prima, you're not. Let me just say something though. My point
Provide
is.
me one example of a moral of atheist morality outside.
I'm not gonna go down with.
Give me one from your philosophy.
No. I'm not going to go down this route with a guy who's dishonest. I'm sorry. If you're dishonest, and if you demonstrate yourself unable to answer questions, you're going to be manipulative, twisting of the truth. And that's the way you are.
I didn't twist the truth. He was the one who was twisting the truth last week.
Why was I engaged in dishonest intellector?
There was no dishonesty. You're the one who changed. Everyone can listen from
There
last
is very
week.
many competent philosophers of theist background, Christian background, that I can definitely be challenged by. And I do on a daily basis, or used to anyway, on a daily basis, particularly when I was in academia studying philosophy, etc. You're not one of them. Right?
Okay,
So,
well, it's easy. Provide me one example of an atheistic morality outside of any theist.
You are moving on to a different discussion. You need to first, come to the primary
that's
thing
why
that we were discussing.
Okay, if I don't know, I'm asking a question.
Prima, real quick. Do you mind, Prima, because I'm interested in
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to see where Mandy is going with his point of discussion. Do you mind tagging me on this and let me?
No, go ahead. I'll sit back.
I'll present the Hindu point of view. So I would love to see where Mandy is.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. The thing is, my battery is on 1%. So I did, for example, articulate it in written format, right? It's an inductive argument, and you can also see a very similar version of it by David Hume. And you can also see some accounts of it by Richard Carrier. You can see some accounts of it by Graham Oppy, right? The simple nature of the argument is that first of all, how do we infer design? Now I'm on 1% right now, so if my battery goes, then I don't know. Yeah. So how do we infer design? Well, the way we do it is because we've got a clockmaker analogy, right? But the first thing that what David Hume recognizes is that the analogy is misleading when you apply it to other stuff, right? For example, just because, for example, intelligent or intricate things, objects have a creator through analogy that we learned from the watchmaker analogy, We learn that through experience, direct experience. When it comes to the universe, we don't get that with direct experience, right? We have to make the analogy from the watch in and of itself. But the universe and the clock or the watch may not be analogous to one another. In the same sense, for example, fire and the sun are not analogous to one another. If we assume, for example, the fire is made up of a combustion reaction, it's made up of oxygen. It's like a nuclear reaction. Sorry, not nuclear. It's like
It's burning
effect.
wood, basically burning wood.
wood. And then we made the analogy, therefore the sun must, because they're both the same. Well, the sun isn't that. The sun isn't not dependent upon oxygen. In fact, the sun is nuclear, thermonuclear, right? It's helium, whatever, hydrogen, etc., right? So different processes. The analogy would be misleading. So David Hume recognizes that these sort of analogies from created objects, designed objects, clocks, to the universe also might be very misleading, right? Then he goes about setting about how does natural things form, and he goes, okay, so the natural thing forms like this, right? And he'll come up with one step. Then he goes, all right, how did that natural thing form? Maybe the creator's behind that one. Then you look for that one. So you may go, so planets. The reason planets move in this particular way is due to Newtonian mechanics or whatever, and all this. But what about that? Then you learn more about it. Then you learn about the gravity, right? Einstein comes out with all these equations, and you learn more about it. Again,
you go back and back and back. Yeah, basically.
And what happens is that every time you do that, you learn more. That here's another natural process. Here's another natural process that was sufficient to explain the former. By this time, you get this kind of alternative picture where maybe natural processes go all the way down, like turtles going all the way down, right? Etc. So that is ultimately the argument. So it's an inductive argument, meaning that given the past frequency of evidence that we've seen, where natural processes explain other natural processes, what's more likely? That the ultimate foundations of the universe is going to have a natural process at the beginning, or there's going to be a surprise designer just sitting there behind it all, right? And when you do that, then you get the idea that this is just it's more likely to be nature, because natural processes explain things all the way down, right?
It's a probabilistic argument, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't like the clockmaker argument myself, because I think everything in clock is non-living, while human has evolved and human cells and everything is living. So that's not a correct comparison also. Where I differ is that life is made possible on the earth because of against innumerable odds. Like if our gravity was a little bit higher or a little bit lower, there would be no human life.
You're talking about fine-tuning argument. You're
Exactly.
talking about fine-tuning
Exactly.
argument.
And that's the only argument for the presence of God or architect or whoever, an intelligent creator, which is a fine-tuning argument.
There are problems with fine-tuning argument as well. A lot of problems. So the problem is that they talk about certain fundamental constants of the universe, basically, right? The strong, weak nuclear force and the gravity, the gravitational constant, entropy, and all those things, Avogadro number, and these, there are certain 26 constants basically, and if you filter them out, there are about 19 constants, right? So the problem is that you have only one universe with a certain value of these constants. When we talk about probability or the range of range of values that a certain constant can take, you only have one set of example that has taken a certain value. For all we know, the whole probability distribution might just give us this one and only universe. You understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So the probability distribution is such that so we basically the point I'm trying to make is we don't have any clue as to what the probability distribution of this these fundamental constants is, right? You might be thinking it is so minuscule a probability, but it might just be a one probability of the entropy being so small, right? Or 10 to the power minus 23. Is just one. Basically, that's the only value it would take for this universe to come into being, basically, right?
Right.
That's the thing. That's the issue with this argument, and that's why it's flawed. So the
So
probabilities
essentially-
that you're talking, so the probabilities you're talking about are conceptual probabilities. They are not realistic probabilities. How do you know that a coin has a probability of 0.5 and 0.5 for heads and tails respectively? Because you flip it again and again and again and again and again, and you see that over 1,000 or 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000, tosses, you get exactly half and half of heads and tails, right? Or a dice, you think, right? You do the same exactly for dice as well.
Right. And this is where I'll interject for 10 seconds and say this is where the double standard comes in. It's the same science that you use to come up with the constants and the phenomenon, and then turn around and say that because it's an argument against the atheist that it's flawed. You realize the double standard, right?
gave you
No,
a
no,
primer.
I'm
Do you
not
understand?
talking about you. I'm just talking about.
Yeah,
I'm
you
just talking
understand?
about.
I've given you a reason why it is flawed.
Yeah, I understand that, and I can
You
totally
have
accept
to
your counter.
counter my answer.
Right.
I've gone 10 steps ahead of you,
Well,
and
let
in
me
detailing exactly why it's
well,
flawed.
all I'm pointing out is this, that it's the same science that comes up with the constant and confirms that this is a constant. So let's say, for instance, the brother is using the gravity as the example that he brought.
Who confirms it? Who confirms it?
And I'm saying, well, this
Who
is what I'm saying.
confirms it?
Well, let me finish. I'm saying that based on his
No,
example.
you're gonna ramble on for 2 minutes for nothing. Basically,
Well, let me
who
finish.
confirms it?
Listen, I don't even get to finish my thought before you all interrupt me. You realize I stay quiet. I listen.
We have to wrap up because Mahadan's
I know, but
is dying.
at least let me get to listen. If I at least allowed to articulate my point without you or Madden just always interrupting me, then it doesn't become a fight over me trying to speak. I can just say what I say because I listen to you. We listen to you. We didn't interrupt. So all I'm saying in my response to your argument that it is flawed, and I am saying that this is where the double standard and the hypocrisy comes in, because the mere fact it is from science that they state the constant. And then when it becomes an argument of confirmation for theists, then you say, no, it's flawed. So then what evidence do we have? Then produce yours. That's my point.
Okay, Prima. Which scientist says that these probabilities are real and could really take effect? Tell me name of one scientist that says that.
The name of one scientist that says what?
Who says that these are real probabilities and these constants can take any of these values in a real world? Tell me one scientist.
I don't understand the question in terms of when you say what.
No, I
looking
know
for like
that you
a
don't
name.
understand.
So no, you're looking for wait. No, what I'm saying
because
is you're looking for. Well, let me.
I understand that.
You're looking for a name of a scientist to say it. That's what I'm asking. If it's a name of a scientist that you're asking.
Okay, tell me one scientist.
Mm-hmm. So
who's that?
So my response would be, for example, the example that the brother brought just now about gravity, right? We have a mathematical formula by Newton's law, right? That says what it is. But you're saying that based on that mathematical formula that has a constant.
I'm saying these are conceptual probabilities.
How is it
why
theoretical or
keep
not?
playing victim card, man?
There's no victim card. Listen, you all trying to always make these
we give you
it doesn't work. Listen, it's not going to work on me because I'm challenging what you keep saying.
And
I'm not shouting. I'm just telling you that
an ad hominem. That's not an ad hominem. You may want to look up what ad hominem is.
Let's put it this way. I'll use double entendre then. So let's put it that way. So my point being is this, right? Is that when you make the argument and you tell me it's flawed, and therefore I have to accept that, I'm saying, no, what makes what you saying is correct based on what I am saying or we believe, because you have no evidence to support nothing, absolutely nothing, even in your own flawed examples that you have brought and changed for the last 2 occasions. So go ahead.
What examples did I bring in?
Your brother brought in the example of the processes, and then he said, no, it's not a process.
You have a very bad understanding of anything that you talk about, and this is a massive issue here, right? So me talking about gravity.
Oh, don't
doesn't
try
mean
to
that-
attack me.
Hey,
Attack
wait,
the
wait, wait,
argument.
wait, wait, wait,
Attack
wait,
the
wait, wait,
argument because that's all
wait,
you've
wait.
been doing. You and your
No,
brother.
I
That's
am-
all you've been doing. I haven't tried. Listen, I haven't attacked you guys to say you. What I've
You
said
just
is
called
that
us
what you're
hypocrites.
telling
You
me.
called us hypocrites.
What
are
I'm
you talking
telling
about?
you.
You called
What
us
I'm saying
hypocrites.
is that
Double
no.
standards. Be quiet.
If it is, we having a conversation, and I tell you something.
You
All
called
right,
us
You're gonna
hypocrites.
tell me
Prema,
I don't know what I'm
let
talking
Madan
about.
let Madan talk, right?
Yeah,
Let
yeah, yeah.
Madan
You
talk.
called us hypocrites. Yeah, and
Yeah,
we can't make it
and that's
personal.
what you are. It's a double standard.
You're the. Let me explain.
Just because we are attacking your beloved,
Yeah.
God
Well,
or your
the thing is,
beloved
I can
religion.
speak to two theists, and it'll be a very sensible, comfortable, very personally affectionate conversation.
Speak to the
And then I speak to-
argument, not
and
the
then and then I
person.
speak to people like yourself who just who doesn't.
But speak to the argument.
You're
Speak
not
to the
you may
argument.
not be you may not be bad motivated. You may not be bad motivated, but there's significant misunderstandings, and that's what causes the tension because you think you're right. and it
No,
causes, right?
it's not a matter of me being
So-
right. It's me challenging that when you
so
say,
this-
listen, the brother turned around and said, you know what? The argument that Kassav just said is flawed. So nothing of what he just said was correct. So all he just said, oh, it's flawed. And then do I accept that because he or you says so? Are we saying
Right.
no?
No. Let me.
And
so
I'm just
let me-
saying.
Okay. I am attacking. Listen, you talk too much. Yeah, I am attacking the argument. I'm just developing it. Bloody hell, from the sentence, right? So you interrupt me just as much as I interrupt you. That's probably why we interrupt you, right? Because we can't get anything out, and we have to end up interrupting each other, right? So in terms of fine-tuning parameters, etc., there's no consensus among scientists that there is actual fine-tuning. Some scientists believe it, some scientists don't. The overall number of scientists who believe in fine-tuning is at this moment not at a consensus, basically. Certain scientists think X, Y, Z is fine-tuned. There's another scientist who will think that's not fine-tuned. Yeah? Another scientist will think ABC is fine-tuned. Another scientist will think that's not fine-tuned. Right? We have dispute and disagreement among physicists, cosmologists, astrophysicists right now, whether or not something is fine-tuned. Fine-tuned but what I mean by here is that the parameters are so narrow, right, that that it's highly unlikely, highly improbable to come about by mere chance alone or something like that. Right?
Right. And my
That's
counter would
all.
be.
And at this, hold on, no, I've not finished. So at this
ahead.
moment, we don't have a consensus. If you want to double check this, look at somebody called Skydive Phil, or look at a cosmologist called Sean Carroll. He explains how.
Sean Carroll thinks
Sean-
that the entropy
Yeah.
is exactly one. The probability of entropy being low
Yeah.
is exactly
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. So
Right.
so a lot of people, we don't actually know, therefore, whether or not if we change the parameters, the entire universe won't exist or not. We don't know that. Yeah. Specifically because we don't have a second or third or fourth or fifth universe to manipulate these constants through experiment scientifically.
My
With
brother.
yeah,
My brother,
scientifically.
you're not
This is
being
what I'm saying.
truthful.
You just want to talk. No. You just
No,
don't-
but
you
how
just-
long you going to
you
go on
just-
to preach?
You just
ahead.
want to
Alright, go ahead.
talk. I know, and I want to talk as well, but I'm just going to talk over you, right?
Alright, go ahead. Finish it.
Yeah. So, given that we can't change the parameters, change the constants to actually know what will happen, and it's very theoretical, and given there's so much disagreement, it is not like the fact of gravity that all these other constants is fine-tuned. It's not like the facts of evolution. Yeah, that all these alleged fine-tuning constants are actually fine-tuned. It's not. It's more of a vague philosophical argument that certain theists use and certain physicists mention, while other physicists contradict that same physicist. It's not a strong science. So that's the distinction, right? So we don't have a double standard. We're accurately representing the scientific community right now. And you can double check that with Skydive Phil, who shows, for example,
All right, you
that the vast
said
majority of
that. You said it. You said
Yeah.
it twice, right? So here's my counter, right? And I'm saying this: two things. Number one, in our solar system and in also the galaxies, do we have other examples of planets that are similar to us that also have gravitational pulls and mass just the same way? That can be studied, and that can be, and that let me finish. Let me just finish. I'll be short. I'll be short.
All right.
Let me finish.
Prima, that's not a counter to what I said, because you said that we're disagreeing with the science. I've established that that's not what the science establishes, because there's no consensus.
What you said.
So you're now just giving a separate personal argument. Oh, the planet. This is your theory. This is not the scientist theory. This is your theory. Am I correct? You're just making something up right now.
Let me
So
finish.
acknowledge. No, so before you move on to your next argument, acknowledge for me that yes, Mardin, you're not
You
you're
can't
not
put words in my mouth. So
departing.
let me speak.
You're not
Let me
departing
speak.
from the scientific community, because I'm saying the scientific community doesn't think in consensus that there are fine-tuned parameters.
So here's
If you're going to make a separate argument, distinguish it as a separate argument.
Let me finish. I'm homing in on just what you said. You said the fine-tuning argument, right, on the basis of whatever example and whoever. I am saying that if we use gravity as my brother used, do we have other planets and systems that cosmologists have been studying and have examples of to show that different planets have different systems and different atmospheric systems and different gravitational pulls other than what is present on our Earth today? No. That's the fine-tuning argument. One last one. Yeah, one last one. Sure. And 10 seconds. And my other point is this. You saying that some people, scientists, disagree with some, even if one faction is in the majority number, does not make the argument right. All we are saying is that, and I'm saying we are agreeing to disagree, but you can't tell us that what we believe is wrong, even based when we use the very science that you try to use and then come back and say, no, it's not valid. That's my point.
No, I think you hold on, Madin.
No,
let me speak.
Let me just address the last point.
Respond to one
you
thing.
Can address the second point. Let me just address the last point. You can respond to the second point. What do you think? All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So the very science that that's what I try to establish, that's not what the science says. That's your interpretation of the science. That's the difference, because the physicists, the cosmologists don't believe it to be a concrete fact that these parameters are narrow and that they can't be explained through the universe or anything like that, right? Because they openly say, for example, this, some of them think it, some of them they are very tentative about it, provisional about it. Some of them think, for example, we actually don't know whether this is fine-tuned or not. So we have a lot of uncertainty. So unlike, let's say, that the world is spherical, or that objects fall to the ground, or the Newtonian mechanics, etc., right? Fine-tuning is not established in that way. So I don't know what you mean that if you don't have a majority, that you're open and that the fact that the scientists are not believing in fine-tuning into the majority, that this is a weakness on our part. It's not. It's a weakness on your part, because you're trying to use the science to say there is fine-tuning and therefore there's a fine-tuner. You need that. If that's not established, then you can't make the conclusion that there's a designer just on the back of that. Any sort of interpretation that you do, therefore, for fine-tuning is your personal interpretation. You can't say that this is scientific.
All right, yeah. One point I wanted to make was, I think Prima is mistaken about something. Probably he has a misunderstanding of what Prima. Just a very honest question on my part to you. Have you studied? Do you have a background in science? This is an honest question.
When you say science, what do you mean science? Science is
have you studied science? Have you studied physics?
Have you
studied physics?
Here's the thing. When you ask, let me finish.
Question.
You want to answer my question?
It's a simple question. Answer.
But let me finish.
Yes, no.
Listen. I asked you.
Why are you playing victim card? Come on.
No, because are there different segments of science?
I don't want
are
there
a whole different categories. No, that's not. Are there different categories of science?
That's why I specifically asked you.
If I say I'm a scientist, what does that mean? If I say I'm a scientist, what does that mean? What did I articulate?
I want to understand, because if you said you are a scientist, if you said you are a scientist, I would say you are lying and you are a horrible scientist.
It's not the point, and I'm saying this is the foolishness always in your question. So listen, here's the question.
Hold on.
No, here's the question.
Hold on.
Have I studied?
Let me finish my point.
What science we talking about? Because your question is open-ended.
Your question,
you can't articulate your own question correctly. So rephrase it and then ask me where you want to ask me.
No, you
ask me what category.
Because your understanding of science, you have told again and again that you don't understand science, right?
Okay, so you're a scientist. So you're a physicist.
I am a scientist.
Are you a physicist? That's why I asked you.
I am a scientist.
I asked you if you are. Listen to the question.
I'll tell you. You'll understand.
Anybody
You'll
get
understand.
different
Okay?
categories of scientists.
You'll
I
understand
asked you
why
if
I'm
you're a
saying what I'm saying.
physicist.
Right? Hold on. Listen to me, and learn a few things from here if you want to. Okay. So you gave away when you said a gravitational force from Earth would be different on other planet and stuff like that, right? Is that the thing you made that point, right?
If I gave it away, go ahead and say what I said. Repeat what I said. Since I gave it away.
You said, wouldn't there be another planets where the pull of gravity would be different?
Try to remember what I said correctly. Go ahead. Try.
Did you or did you not say that?
No,
right?
Try. Since you want to articulate my hand that I showed, go ahead.
Something similar to it. I'm paraphrasing you, basically. I'm paraphrasing you, right? You did you or did you not say that?
Try to paraphrase correctly.
Which gravitational constant is the
try to paraphrase what I said, because this is my point. You ask silly questions.
I'm moving away from that. Do not play these games. Do not play these.
No,
games.
It's not a matter of playing games. I can play the same games that you all are playing.
Which gravitational constant is the fine tuning taken into?
What was the example? What was the example and the scientist that I named, the physicist? Who did I use? What name did I call? What name did I call?
No, I'm not talking
about
what
name did I call when I made my statement?
You specifically said the gravitational pull would be different on different planets. Is that something?
No, that's not what I. That's not what I said.
Okay,
that's not what I said. So here's my question: in you trying to recollect, do you recollect the example and the mathematical formula that I highlighted?
Go ahead, please.
No, I'm asking you if you remember.
Repeat it.
No, you don't. Just say you don't, and that's my point. Because the mere fact is you're trying to tell me.
All right.
Prima, you can't demand him. What happened to your logic? You can't demand him to answer the question in the way you want. Why are you being a hypocrite?
You can answer anyhow you want. My
point
is that he can't even remember. He can't even remember.
Don't put words in his mouth.
Listen,
don't put words
I can remember exactly what you all said.
Don't put words in his mouth.
If he can't remember something I said 10 minutes ago.
If you can't answer straightforward questions, let him answer in the way.
Well, then make his point. Let him make his, but try to make.
Yeah,
your point.
because why I'm saying is you don't understand the gravitational constant that is being used for the fine tuning argument. Do you understand which gravitational constant it is?
What is the name of the scientist that I use, and what is the formula that I stated?
No, did I ask you about scientist? I never asked about that.
Here's what the question you asked me, right? How you said name a scientist. I asked for clarification. Who do you want a name? You listen. You don't remember what you say, what you people say. That's how I managed.
An earlier question. That was an earlier question. Right?
That's my point, my brother. Because you can't even remember the questions that you asked me, but you come in to ask me questions now and tell me I'm showing my hand.
You didn't answer that question. You didn't answer that question.
I answered you. Listen.
I think you.
Do you want a name? Right. This is what I asked you. Do you want a name?
Your clock is running slow. Maybe you're on some
go ahead with your
rocket or something where you just can't get the question and answer.
You can't even ask a simple question. Listen, you hear the question you asked me. Am I a scientist? Here's my response. What category of science are you referring to? Which one are you trying to
Are you a scientist? We are talking about cosmology, so the question has to be pretty simple for you.
And here was my question to you: are you a physicist? You didn't answer up to now.
No, I'm not.
Good.
Can you see? No, Philo. Can you see? Prima cannot answer straightforward questions. He responds to questions.
He has a problem. He has a problem.
No, it's not a matter. Listen, the problem is not answering the question. The problem is when you ask. Listen, when you ask.
And whatever the case, he doesn't have any legitimacy for it. So he just makes things up. He comes onto these shows. He needs a confidence booster, right? You can't answer straightforward questions. You answer questions with questions because you are a defense lawyer. That's all. And therefore, you've demonstrated yourself.
He has a confidence problem. He has a confidence
disingenuous,
problem.
So
right?
go
Why
ahead.
don't you,
Let
Prima,
me
go
see
back,
what-
go back to your friends.
Listen,
Go back to
yeah,
your,
let me
go
tell
back
you
to your
one
friends.
thing.
Bring a better,
Whenever you begin to
bring a
lose the
better
argument
competent,
is when you begin to make
bring a
attacks.
better.
No,
I have not
you,
attacked
you
you
don't have
guys
any.
no
You
way.
don't have any argument, Prima.
I've provided the arguments and
you,
told you
you
all
don't have
that
any
even-
No,
argument.
no, there's another
You don't
explanation.
have
We
any
can be
argument.
frustrated by disingenuous people. When we
So
say,
listen.
is this A or B, A or B, and the other person goes, I'm not going to answer that, but I'm going to ask you, is that X or Y? What do we get from that sort of person? We
So-
notice straight away that person is dishonest. He can't
so
have
here
an
it is.
honest. He's not honest.
Since
He's not
last week,
sincere.
here was the question
That's
I
what's
asked.
happening.
Let's have this. Let's keep it this way. If you really want to have serious discussions, perfectly fine. You have to answer questions basically because you have been dodging questions since the last time, pretty much. I
Last
remember.
week, here's what I asked you guys.
Yeah,
Up to now,
right.
didn't
Hold on,
answer.
hold on.
Wait.
You
I
didn't
asked them.
answer.
I said, here's my question I've always asked.
Hold on.
Where
Let me
is
finish.
the
You, and then you
substance?
started playing victim card.
No.
Then you started- You're asking
No, we can go back
question
to the
over
audio.
questions,
We can
pretty
go
much.
back. Yeah, we can go back
Right.
because I asked him,
You haven't
where
answered a
does
single question. You haven't
where does
answered
the
a single question.
substances get the code from? Where do they get the instruction from?
That was not.
This is what I'm
Martin's
saying.
question.
That was the question
That's
I'm
not-
asking since
Prima.
last week.
All right. What
Did you
I'll have
answer
to
it?
do, Prima,
Prima,
for
I-
the sake of keeping this channel sane, I might have to just kick you out of the.
I ain't got no problem with that. Come on, my brother.
mean,
Listen,
you're not
whenever
worthy
you
of
guys
having a
get challenged,
discussion.
you feel that you can always
No,
just say what you
don't
want to
have-
say
you don't- you
and
don't
say
have
that it's
any
true, but it's
argument.
not.
You don't
Nothing
have
of
any
what you
argument.
guys said
This
is
not-
true.
Yeah, but Prima, nothing that you said is a significant challenge at all in any sort of respect. It's the
I mean-
simple design argument that we've heard about intelligent design people, for example. We've had a stronger version of this.
I told you.
acknowledge the
I
strength.
told you
No.
last week. I told you last week.
acknowledge. Wait a minute.
To produce one amino acid in a cell.
Prima,
Wait,
There,
to
there,
produce.
there are Christian
produce-
philosophers who are
Yes.
really good.
So I'm giving you. I'm giving
Josh
Christian- I'm
Rasmussen.
giving- yes.
I
Josh
provided to
Rasmussen,
you
should go
biological
and-
examples. You couldn't answer and you said, no, let's not use biological. Your partner had to even change the conversation and say, let's not use. I said, for a cell to produce one amino
no.
acid within
changing
its
the topic.
structure. No. We're going back for this is stem from last week. The same way.
Prima,
when I
no,
asked
it's
you,
not. It's
because you
not.
keep
You-
asking
you're
me,
adding-
where do I see God?
Prima, it's already 1 hour and you haven't answered a single question.
I've
And
answered
we have
all
been going
of your
in
questions.
rounds and round again.
And you guys have
Maybe
not
next
answered
time
me.
we'll see.
Where is the coding coming from? Where is the instruction? Tell me if you can answer that question.
Unless
then.
until you answer Madan's question first.
No, that was my first question.
We're not going. We're not
Because
moving
you keep
forward.
shifting it for him. He lost the argument. That's why you guys always attacking me.
nobody
I got
lost
no
the
problem
argument.
with that.
His
But
question was pretty simple.
Prima,
Last
you
week
guys
you lost,
you guys
this
lost the
week you
argument
lost.
300 years ago.
Okay, fine.
Exactly. So don't talk big on a screen with me. You lost the argument
But-
300 years ago,
Produce,
right?
tell me where does the coding and the instruction come from?
I'm telling you right now.
We'll do that.
You come up with
discussion
some
properly.
silly clock example about a clock and a watchmaker. That's one of the most silliest examples that anyone could use to, even from a philosophical point, or even from a physicist or biological. Nobody not going to use a clock.
Prima,
maker and a
you
clock
need brain
to
surgery
explain-
because you need brain surgery.
Listen,
because
I
you don't
asked
know-
you. Listen,
All right,
last week I asked
Madan,
you.
Madan,
I asked you within the
Prima.
molecule. Within the molecule,
Prima, stop changing
one
the topic.
amino
Stop changing
acid.
the topic. Stop
One
changing the
amino
topic.
acid. How is
No,
it
no,
produced?
stop changing the topic.
Where is the
because-
coding, the
Stop
DNA, and
changing
where
the
does it
topic.
come
Madan,
Stop changing the topic.
Prima,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. Whether we'll tackle that question as well.
No
Yeah.
problem.
We'll
All right,
tackle
let
that
me be
question as well.
nice to you guys. I cook you guys already enough, so I'll jump out. You can talk with Kasaf for the.
You've not cooked anything because
Come
you've
on,
been-
bro. You listen.
Yeah.
You've been curried. You like curried
You've
right
been
now.
steamrolled. You
Okay.
steamrolled.
Some-
You
no,
steamrolled.
listen, I got
you.
some
Put you in a
Madan,
can, shipped you to Japan.
I got some nan.
And a fat man, a fat Yokozuna just sat on that can. That's what's happened to your argument. You got
Listen, from the
steamrolled
time
over,
you begin
shipped
to
over the
attack.
country, put into
Oh,
a garbage can.
Madan,
Slap-
Whenever
let him
you
do-
lose the
Yeah.
argument,
And
Let him
300
do it.
years ago, you were ended.
Madan.
300 years ago, you were ended, and you were ended again today. Because
Madan,
you weren't
let him-
really ended though. It didn't even take off. The plane didn't
Madan,
even
let
take
him
off.
let him live in his
300
own
years. You
delusions,
really want to come from where you come from to tell me that? Come on, bro. That's laughable.
Oh, you're bringing race into it.
I'm just trying to show you the comment that you made.
What
That's my
comment
point.
that I meant? I
What you
meant
300 years?
Christianity
No, I
has
know what it
faded since
means.
then.
Listen, I know what you mean.
That's what
I
I
know
meant.
what Christianity
Has
was
nothing
not
to do with
300
anything
years
else.
ago.
I said intellectually,
Christianity is not 300
you
years
lost
ago.
the
You're
argument.
racist. You're racist. You lost already.
No,
You're
no,
showing your
this
hand.
was this was this
You're
was in
showing
reference
your
to
hand.
this was
If
in
you can,
reference to this was
no, I know what
hold on,
he's doing.
Prema. No, I'm giving you a factual because your brain
What
can't
300?
comprehend
What
simple
300 years?
things.
What?
He was
What's the
talking about
reference to the
David
300?
Hume, David Hume's design argument, basically the
No,
way he
he's lying.
demolished.
I know what he's doing.
I know for a fact.
Telling me about come off a
Yeah,
plane.
kind of. No, Philip,
No, that's
a little
your
bit. I
statement.
wasn't
You're
talking about that. I
racist.
wasn't just.
You
I
can't
wasn't just
listen,
talking
you
about
can't
that.
make
Hold
no
on,
racist comment coming from the country that you
Prima.
come
Let me
from.
explain. Let me
No,
genuinely.
I'm not gonna wait for it anyhow. I'm good. I'm out.
Let me. You don't even know what racism is, because that's not what racism is, right? So I was actually talking about the scientific age, and I was talking about the Enlightenment age. I was talking about Immanuel Kant. I was talking about David Hume. I was talking about John Locke. I've been talking about Charles Darwin. I mean, Christianity lost the argument, or theism lost the argument as a result of thinking that evoked during that time, and the change and shift in philosophy as a result, right? Where the design argument became weaker and weaker. That's what I was referring to. There's nothing about race there.
I mean,
right?
I was right. Basically, I was talking
Yeah,
about
you're
that
right.
era.
Yeah,
Basically, I was right about that actually. But yeah, he's. I think he's too hyper to handle any answer anything. Basically, I don't want to talk behind his back. But
I
think
might talk behind his back. I don't mind.
Yeah, it's hard to have conversation with.
Kashraf,
some of
I
those
actually
things.
apologize for the poor spirit that we displayed, the absolute idiocy in the comments, and probably at some point, both of us, me and Philo, showed ourselves in a very bad light, which can happen, as you can imagine. I'm pretty sure you got that side as well. But like I said, I can have a conversation with a theist, which is completely the opposite of what happened, and I can have a completely destructive conversation. It depends, right? But
Yeah,
yeah.
I think these theological arguments are always filled with emotions, and
No, I think okay. I shouldn't say that. I think he's unwilling to answer the questions straightforwardly. I think this is. I mean, for a conversation to move forward, you have to be ready to answer a question straightforwardly, maybe, and then move on, and maybe even come back if you want to maybe correct yourself. That's hard. Basically, he just thought. I mean, he was just thinking if he were to answer that question, he would be just he'll just lose. Basically,
And guess what?
there's a trap in there.
Because and that's the thing, Kashraf. I wasn't even trying to get him to agree with what I was saying. I was just trying to tell him why I think there is no designer, right? That is all. And he just couldn't go. To explain the process. You know how you asked me? You wanted to hear my explanation. Did it seem like I was trying to trap you?
Right.
No, I was just explaining why I think there's no designer, right? Not even a finite designer. I think natural processes themselves are good explanations of natural processes, and that itself is a track record. Just in the same way we observe design in the universe by people creating things, we also observe natural processes creating things on its own. And to say that a natural process can never ever be evidence of itself is having an unfalsifiable standard. Because what would be good evidence that there are natural processes that can assemble themselves without a creator, other than what we see already?
What natural process do you think is the most dynamic one that you have seen that creates things by itself?
I don't think there's one natural process. I mean,
there's
processes,
one.
right? Yeah. So it'll be anything. Like it will be, for example. So it's everything that you already accept, but you just think God put it into motion. Whatever those
Let's
rules
talk
are.
about like snowflakes, for example, right? Like you look at snowflakes and it looks like somebody designed it, correct?
Yes.
And you can look at that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So you can look at snowflakes and how symmetrical they are and how beautiful they are. And somebody looks at it at a microscopic level and says, this has to be designed. But then you say, okay, no, there are principles in the nature that can do this by itself. If certain variables of the weather combine, then this shape could be formed. But that shape exists somewhere, right? And if I the most I can give to an atheist about nature creating itself is probably nature can create beautiful and amazing. Like there are formations in New Zealand, I believe, where the nature creates exactly rectangle or square shaped rocks near the ocean, something like that. I think there is also a material available in nature that is very polished and very like geometric shape. Those things nature can create, and a lot of people can look at it and say there is no way nature created this, but in fact nature did create it, and that's fine. But my question is, when it comes to organic things, when it comes to humans, when it comes to people, that is difficult to kind of believe that that was created just by itself, because one of the most important ingredient in, say, life in human beings is not just that we are made up of all this biological and chemical things, but it's that we are made up of consciousness. We want to live, we want to love, we want to take care, all those emotions. Where did that come from?
Right. So
Okay, Martin, go ahead.
no, go on. If Philo, you go first, then I'll.
No,
I'm in a
I
different
just
room right
wanted
now.
to say this, like, it's trying to fill the gap that we don't have any idea about, right? And for that gap, you assume it to be, something higher than what it is, basically. And I think we did discuss with what's his name, Yusuf, right? What was the earlier guy's name? Yusuf Madin,
Maybe, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we did say that consciousness is a tricky thing right now. As of now, we don't have the neuroscience, or the science doesn't have any good grasp on it. But we are making a headway. I think two scientists that I have at least read a little bit of, Anil Seth and V.S. Ramachandran, right? They are doing excellent work on it, and there are a couple of other guys as well, basically, right? And maybe consciousness is something that it's going to be a couple of 100 years before we get a tap on it. But it could be just an emerging property of the physical brain as well, pretty much. Or it could be, as I said earlier, Mahadin and I said, it could be something ethereal as well, basically. It could be, it could be just a, what do you call, the boson field, basically, right? Something similar to that, basically, right?
Yeah. So let me just address some of those points, in the sense that human beings and functions, or animals or animal kingdom, we do have an elaborate and illustrious scientific theory that has amassed mountains of evidence, and is pretty much established fact amongst the biological community, and that is evolution, and that does explain how organs, organ systems, and organisms all develop certain adaptations and functions, and so on and so forth. And you can explain it all the way up towards 4 billion years, etc. Right? And we can make predictions, and we very, very fine, specific, precise predictions that will only be true if the mechanisms of evolution were to be behind those works, right? And it increases the probability that evolution. So that's how science works, right? So we see certain mechanisms, which is natural selection, mutations, inheritance, reproduction, right? And then we know how they can, for example, change the structure of the DNA, right? And then we can make predictions about if this organ evolved through these same mechanisms, what should we expect? Should we expect morphological changes in fossils? Should we expect DNA changes in the particular areas? Should we expect a certain number of mutations? Should we expect, for example, the change that happens in the organ to be consistent with the mutation rate? And we get these very, very surprising predictions coming to be correct, right? And therefore we can be certain, for example, humans came through this evolutionary process. So this is how we can know that this is, again, another blind process. In terms of the brain is part of the same, right? Sorry, the consciousness. By the way, can you guys hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yes,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just you guys went so quiet, right? In terms of the brain and consciousness, the reason we think that the consciousness is created by evolution or physicalism, or natural processes, or part of the brain, versus, like, say, a God who created it, is because, for example, the evidence suggests that it's more likely to be explained by atheism or physicalism, or natural processes versus theism.
But how would you define
Right.
consciousness? What is consciousness for you?
Right, I know you're a Hindu, so that's very important to yourself, isn't it? Yeah. So are you Hindu?
Yes.
Yeah. So consciousness. So it depends. Are you an idealist as well? Are you like? Do you believe that everything's part of God, Krishna's mind, or something? Do you believe in panentheism or something, or pantheism? So not pantheism, but
I'm
panentheism.
not,
Yeah.
Panentheism.
yeah, I'm not so structured in my belief. So I do believe that we are created by intelligent. We are created by intelligence, and I do believe we all have purpose. And I do believe that this life is not the only life. We live beyond our body. So we live after we leave this body. So those are just few things that I believe in. I don't believe in like the very exotic part of Hinduism where it's like we are all living. Well, I wouldn't say I don't believe, but I just say I don't dwell on it. Like we're all part of Vishnu's consciousness, and all those belief. I think those are much more like exotic thought. But as far as my Hindu belief is concerned, I think I believe in that we are souls who possess the body, and we migrate to a different different dimension or somewhere else, but we live after we live. Our soul continues to live after we die.
Keshav, it's a yeah, I think that's your belief. But before we proceed further, I just wanted to make a comment about what happened between Prima Scriptura and Mahadan. I think what Mahadan said was not meant to be a racist comment. So anybody who listens to this and comes forward, I think I should have clarified this earlier as well. That is not supposed to be. We are not a racist channel. None of us is. Neither, as much as I know Mahadan, neither is Mahadan, neither any one of our co-hosts here. And so maybe Prima, because maybe I'm thinking in his frustration, he thought we were being, or maybe because of his misunderstanding, he thought it to be that way. But we
I didn't
weren't
even make.
talking
Oh
about
wait.
that
So
basically.
did you think 300 years ago he meant something to do with?
Yeah, I don't know what he thought about.
I don't even realize
I
that.
don't even know what happened,
Yeah.
which we thought about it. So he needs to
Yeah.
clarify what we thought about it, what he thinks we thought
No,
about
no.
it,
I
and
think
said.
it's appearing to me now because first of all, I don't even know what race he is.
Did the transatlantic trade
Yes,
start at about that time?
yes.
Okay, no,
It just occurred to me now.
not about
It just
we were
occurred
not
to me now.
referring to it basically. So
But if you're gonna be
if
that
he comes
sensitive,
in,
if you're gonna be that
if he
sensitive,
comes,
then
if he comes back in, we'll have to clarify him. We didn't mean that. I thought you were talking about David Hume and all those guys basically
I
when
was talking about the
the
enlightenment. I
Christianity
was talking
was
about the
at
I was talking about 300 since last 300 years. The idea of the design has fallen out of place. And it's mainly
exactly.
due to Enlightenment era, scientific revolution, Charles Darwin, all of these things, and the
Yeah.
demise of Christianity. The Christian church. I was talking about these things. The Christian church was far more in power, and now it's not. They lost the argument. That's all. That's about it.
So Keshav, you got the answer about consciousness. I think we are about to close the stream, and when we are about to close the stream, we have a sword on our channel basically, and that's called Islamic Sword Channel. Wakas.
Yeah, but let me talk to Kashaf because I think
Yeah, no,
Wakas,
I'm saying I'm asking. I'm gonna ask Wakas to maybe come back in
on
our Hindi
Urdu.
Urdu stream.
Yes,
Yeah, Hindi
because
Urdu stream. Because
I
Wakas,
just came
sorry.
here. I just came here to confirm that when you will do your Hindi
No, your
stream,
voice is
because
really your voice is really breaking up. We can't even understand a single word of what you say.
Wakas, come back when you're not drunk.
ओ भाई ये पीपल साहब ये क्या चल रहा है?
You've been drinking too much
ये
sharab.
he's
No,
he's I think yeah. Tell me what's the problem.
the bottle that you brought for yourself or bought for yourself, your phone has been drinking it.
I am Muslim and Muslim cannot drink. Okay,
No,
so I
no,
think
I'm not saying
Madin,
you
Both
did.
can.
do not blame anyone. Madin, that's not good. Okay, I can understand your position that you
No,
always blame and blame. I
Waqas, your
can
voice is
understand
really
your
It's a
bad.
joke.
position.
Wakas, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Your voice
Wakas,
is
it's a
really
joke.
bad.
Okay,
You need to
Wakas,
come back.
Wakas, it's a joke. How do you say joke in Urdu?
okay,
Mazak. Mazak.
okay, okay,
Latifa,
okay,
Latifa.
Yeah.
okay,
We can be.
okay,
We can be.
okay,
We can be funny sometimes, right? It's not. You don't have to be serious all the time.
okay, okay, okay,
Yes.
okay. I can understand. Okay,
Tans
no
or
problem.
tans kasna is the right word for it, basically.
Philo, naughty. Okay, okay. Enjoy. I can
We
go
can't
now.
understand what you're saying, basically.
I said, Philo, you are a naughty boy. Okay, bye bye.
All right. Okay. Keshav. Sorry, Madin, you wanted to finish your point.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not. Obviously, I'm not a solipsist or an idealist who believes that everything is consciousness. I do believe consciousness is, for example, desires, feelings, thoughts, etc. And I make a separation and demarcation between that and material objects, right? Like the tree, forests, rocks, atoms, etc. The brain. Those are not necessarily consciousness, although you may say consciousness is a function or product of the brain. But consciousness is this very, difficult to pin down thing, very mysterious thing. But we do have some good understanding that it's linked to the brain, right? And every feeling, all the feelings and desires like thirst, hunger, is part of your consciousness, right? So when the sun comes up, that's not obviously part of your consciousness, although you detect it through your consciousness. But I believe that the sun is separate from consciousness, that there is a mind-independent material reality outside of your consciousness. There's a general kind of impression that we think that exists, whereas your consciousness is separate from that. So I don't believe in the kind of how some Hindus believe in consciousness is everything. I don't believe in that. That's number one. Number two, why do I think consciousness is linked to the brain? Well, there's several pieces of evidence, right? And why I think consciousness is a product of slow, gradual evolution over time, right? Obviously, when the brain gets damaged, consciousness gets damaged, right? When you lose your auditory functions, you lose your consciousness of hearing, for example. When you do a split brain patient surgery, split the brain into two, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, the personality splits into two, and you end up with two consciousnesses. Now, if the
Exactly,
soul
yeah.
theory was correct, it wouldn't be dependent on the brain, right? Right? You should be able
That
to
would
have.
imply that you have two spirits, basically,
Yeah, exactly. Why should, as you break up the brain, consciousness diminish and/or separate into two separate personalities? Your brain, your consciousness, if it was separate from the brain and wasn't material and immaterial, then even if you damage the brain into two, you should have one unified whole person that's not divided into two. But you end up dividing a person into two. Yeah, the left hemisphere, it has a different person or personality than the right hemisphere. Yeah, with the expected attributes that you would expect on those sides of the brain. That's another piece of evidence. The other piece of evidence that the consciousness is linked to the brain is that as you age, consciousness develops more. When your brain is small, your judgment, your intellect, your knowledge, your memory, your ability to grasp things is very, very minimal. But as you grow up and your cortex develops, we see again further changes in your consciousness. Again, there's a link between that. And the final one is across animals. Brain size, brain interconnectedness, interactivity, and interconnections has a connection with consciousness. The bigger the brain, or the better interconnections that the brains have across animals,
The
the more
bigger
intellect.
the brain to body
Yeah.
ratio, then
Yes.
basically that's one of
Exactly.
the determining
Exactly.
factors.
Yeah. And we have all the hallmarks of evolution. When we look through evolution, we see changes in skull size, and with those changes in skull size, we see changes in intelligence of the species, including in hominids. So as the skull increases for the hominid, yeah, we see changes in the instruments they make, the abilities that they have, their creativity. Again, signaling that consciousness or intelligence is tied to the brain. And given that we have the evidence of fossil evolution happening, it suggests that it was also part of this evolutionary process. And given that it's linked to the brain, we think that is a product or is identical to the brain. One of them, I don't know exactly which one, but has to be something like that. Whereas if consciousness was created by God, he did not have to link it to a brain, right? He could have created.
I don't think consciousness is linked to brain, because if you like, there are a lot of studies and a lot of evidences and a lot of what is it called, testimony of people who are being on coma and they have still been able to who's been pretty much brain dead. One of the example I can give you, this lady whose name is Anita Murjani. If you ever get a chance to look her up on YouTube, ANITIMORJI, you should listen to her experience where she's having a brain cancer and she's been in coma for a significant amount of days. When she comes back, she's able to narrate exactly what happened to her when her brain was dead. And she was talking about her, the name of the doctor, what the doctor said and everything. And this was a time where physically she was incapable of absorbing all this information. And it's not just her. There have been
I highly doubt these studies, because these are far and few, basically, right? First, basically.
So what's your explanation?
There is a scientist, there is an American scientist by the name of Stevenson or something like that, who has done some similar studies on near-death experiences and similar studies, pretty much, right? And his methodologies are flawed as well. So I hardly, very rarely trust these things unless until these tests could be performed in a very, scientific environment with tight, restraints on these, who does what and how it is done. Unless until it is done and repeatedly, I don't think they warrant any.
But let me just say. Yeah, let me just quickly say that Keith Augustine did a methodological review of the literature, the scientific literature on this, and has demonstrated, for example, that it has not passed the threshold for reliable science. So what you're talking about, everything that I talked about age development, brain disorders, this is just accepted wisdom within neuroscience, that consciousness and brain are connected at the very minimum, right? That the fact that brain consciousness dependence is a fact is accepted by neuroscientists, cognitive scientists. Why don't they accept, for example, the evidence of out-of-body experiences, etc., and so on and so forth? Because the evidence is very thin. When you do a systematic review, and this is how we do it, when I accept science, I don't just accept fringe science. I don't just accept outlier science. I try to accept the most established, well-tested, robust science with a consensus, with the vast majority of people, of scientists who pay attention to the field, also agree, but not just through personal opinion, but by virtue of studies and experiments, that in fact this hypothesis is true and it's a fact, right? And we don't have anything like that for out-of-body experiences. Keith Augustine did a systematic review and found very many methodological flaws, selective accounts, distorted experiences, flaws in ensuring that the person wasn't actually dead or
coma, right? Yeah.
The details weren't as specific as what was once thought. Fabrications, lies, unable to test whether or not the person is telling the truth. Multiple ridden with these problems. Because it didn't pass those strict rigors of peer review, these out-of-body experiences cannot be established as a fact. Unlike other things, for example, climate change, 99% of the climatologists think it's at least happening. Gravity, the Earth being spherical, how the moon works. We have consensus.
The Earth goes around the sun and all those things.
We don't have.
Vian Miraj. Vian, sorry, we're about to close, so my apologies, but I would request you to join in maybe next stream. Madin, what do you say? I think it's really, we need to close this stream. Vian,
but
sorry.
We should give Kashaf the last word because he's been very patient.
Kashaf.
Go on, Kashaf.
No, I think it almost kind of started a different chain of conversation. Maybe we can do it next time, because I had a few other things in my mind to kind of carry on with that. But if you're
apologies to Vian, and please do join back next stream, our next stream, right? Sorry. And Keshav, one last question before do you want to add anything more before I ask you a short question?
Nothing that's short.
Or I've seen you in some of the SC Dawa streams, or maybe
Yes.
Are you the guy in there? Okay,
Yes.
I've been on those streams as well, maybe once or twice, probably.
Yeah.
Are you from? You're not from India, right?
I'm in US right now, but I am from India.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Those were the shortest questions, right?
Okay.
So with that, I think Madan, we should close the stream. It's been what, close to 3 hours, right? Yeah, I think what I'll say is before we close down, anybody who's listening, please subscribe to our English only channel. I've been saying this for past probably 8-9 months already now, that our English only channel is Unveiling Faith. If you join that, we'll probably slowly move our English only streams to that one, and we'll keep our Hindi Urdu streams on this channel. And also, maybe if you think of supporting us in any which way you can, please do. We have our Patreon, we have our Buy Me a Coffee /Philosapiens, and you can think of supporting us with super chats or whatever is out there from YouTube, basically. And if the least you can do is basically spread the word, basically, because I think what we are doing and bringing in philosophy in the subcontinent on, with the religious conversations, basically. I hardly think there is a channel which brings Western philosophy and serves it with religion, pretty much, right? And especially Islam or any other religion of the Eastern origin, pretty much.
We did get a very good viewers today, though. I mean, look, we got 11 right now. I mean, we're not that popular, and it shows why. I mean, maybe because.
I think we did dive deep into philosophy, right? So that's one of the things, and maybe sometimes,
Today we were entertaining,
and we are faceless people as well. So that's.
I think today we were entertaining. I think people like the violence. They like violent.
People like the violence. See,
they like the violent version.
I think it's in our evolutionary nature, basically, right? That violence, basically. You know what women like, basically, in a man, a macho man, basically. That's what it is. Right?
It's the way you said.
So unless until you're a macho man.
That was the most embarrassing moment in the history of this. Why?
That is true. That is a fact, Mahadan. That is a fact.
No,
basically.
It's the way you said it. Like it's I don't know.
Yeah, I was. Maybe I didn't put it.
Hey guys, you know what women like? They're like macho man. Like something out of. Have you watched Superbad? The movie Superbad. I don't think you have.
Superbad. Yeah, I think I may have.
Superbad. McLovin. Do you know McLovin? I can imagine McLovin saying that.
No, yeah.
You know, guys. You know what women like? Macho man.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, look at those, all these underworld dons and all those stuff. They get to have all these, anyway, you get the gist of it, basically. So anyway, any
like the
closing
bad
remarks, Keshav?
I would suggest keep good work and hope your channel grows faster. We need good
I think whenever you get a chance, maybe anywhere, you just suggest our channel, just push it wherever you can. We would really appreciate it, basically.
Not a problem.
All right, and drop in whenever you get a chance, maybe have another. But thanks for your patience. You patiently waited for such a long time.
Not a problem. You guys have live stream on Fridays?
It's a little bit erratic at this point, but we'd love to have like a fixed days and do streams, basically. So maybe so there is another person in our on our channel. Basically, we are 4, but 3 are more regular than the 4th one is very occasionally he comes in. But Khayali is another person, and I do Hindi Urdu streams with Khayali. So we are all from, I don't know if you realized it or not, we are all from different, we are from the same subcontinent originally. Mahadan is from UK, I'm from India, and Kali's from Pakistan. So,
Got it.
but
I can tell,
Madan,
Philo, are you from South?
yeah,
Are you from South?
that's something I'll keep it to myself, right?
Your
Okay.
accent, I can tell that it's from South somewhere. I can probably guess the state.
There can only be one macho man in the South, and that's Philo.
There can only be one macho man, and that's who's that, Madan?
Philo, definitely Philo. Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
good work, guys. Keep
All
having
right.
interesting
All right.
conversations.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for inviting me. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night. Bye bye. All right, Madan. Time to close, everybody. Thanks for joining, and see you guys in the next stream. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.